Swing, fly ball, hit well toward right, at the track, at the wall. That baby's gone.
He did, and cracks that to left center field. That's going to get down and roll to the wall. Mason around first on his way to second. He's got a 3-hit night with a couple of doubles.
A swing and a shot hammered toward left. Dylan Carlson on the run. Won't get it. A tie off the wall. That's going to score Nootbaar. The Cardinals have back-to-back doubles and their third run. It's a 4-3 game.
That's what it sounded like last night on FanDuel Sports Midwest alongside Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. If you are typically a TMA listener, I apologize. It's now BK and Ferrario. Thank you so much for tuning in today. The guys are out. They've got the Dotem today and tomorrow, so we will be doing the extra 10 o'clock hour for the guys. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. The YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Alex, Cardinals are clutch. Nobody can deny this. This has been an argument between the two of us for, 5 years now on if such a thing exists or if over time this will normalize. Hey, the Cardinals are really good in non-clutch situations and then they get into clutch situations. Hey, this is a sample size issue. Just small sample size. They'll get good at it. They didn't get good at it over the last couple of seasons, and we saw what the results were. This year, it's different. The Cardinals this season are batting .270 with a .750 OPS with runners in scoring position. For context, they're batting .260 with a .730 OPS in non-runners in scoring position situations. So they are actually somewhat better with runners in scoring position right now than they are in those non-clutch situations. If you just want to look at high leverage spots, it's even better than that. This team has the it factor. The stuff that Alex has been asking for over the last couple of seasons that's been holding him back. All I can do as I'm watching these games, Alex, is say to myself, man, this is a team that's after Alex Ferrario's heart.
You're darn right, and I think that's why I'm officially bought in, because RISPCT, what does it mean to me? It means this team's good. You know where those rank, BK, in terms of batting average in Major League Baseball and OPS in Major League Baseball with runners in scoring position? 3rd and 6th. You know what they were last year with runners in scoring position? 3rd worst batting average in runners in scoring position, 3rd worst OPS in runners in scoring position. That's the difference of this team. That's what's made me go from I'm done with this team and I can't invest in them to, yeah, they could do damage in the playoffs because they make big plays with the ideal situation in the game. When guys are at second base or at third base, no matter if there's 1 out, 0 outs, or 2 outs, I expect that player to score. Whereas last year, there could be a player at third with 0 outs, and I don't expect that guy to score. Frankly, I expect him to get tagged out at home by some godforsaken reason. That's the difference of this ball club right now. And again, it's not 1 or 2 guys that's doing it with runners in scoring position. It's everybody. It's Victor Scott. It's Mason Winn. It's Jordan Walker. It's even Nolan Gorman, who we're out on. But with runners in scoring position, the guy seems to come through. I don't know if I should credit Brant Brown, credit the players. I think you credit both because these players weren't doing it last year without Brant Brown. But even without Brant Brown, they looked like they were nervous at the plate with those specific scenarios in front of them.
I had a buddy text me last night, and he said he's been thinking a lot about this whole runway thing, right? Because I think some people, their reaction to this season is, man, it's about time. Been a long time coming. And now they see the results, and it's like, imagine if this had been 2 years earlier. Imagine if they hadn't done the patchwork stuff where they go out there and they sign Lance Lynn, they sign Kyle Gibson, they go get some veteran players that can be just pieced into this lineup. What would things have looked like over the past few years if they just gave the young guys this opportunity? And I got to thinking, and I was like, man, I actually don't know that it would have gone this way over the last couple of seasons. I think this is uniquely about 2025. I think they have the right coaching staff in place to make this all possible. I think John Jay has been a huge boost to their outfield defense. I think they have the right hitting coach in place, as you mentioned, with Brant Brown, who's able to help these guys along. They've talked ad nauseum about their preparation this season. That has not always been the case in the past. There have been times, in fact, where a player, specifically Tommy Edman, has called out their lack of preparation pre-game in the post-game media availability. So I think that's a big part of it. I also think for some of these guys, they're just ready to take on bigger roles. Winn Donovan is ready for this opportunity now. Lars Nootbaar is just healthy right now to take on a bigger role and to be the player that the Cardinals have believed that he could ultimately become. Wilson Contreras, not behind the plate this year, playing over at first base. Like, you just have a lot of guys that have taken this opportunity and run with it, not only because they were granted the chance, but also because now they're ready for it. So had this taken place over the last couple of years, I'm not sure it looks like this.
Yeah.
I think part of why they're having this success, in fact, is because they've taken their lumps over the last couple of years. They weren't put into those positions necessarily. And now you're seeing the results of like fully formed, developed players going out there and getting their chance to see what it looks like when they're playing every day.
And I think another massive reason why we're seeing this happen right now is because there were no expectations on these guys. Like at the beginning of the season, it was talking about cutting payroll and them being bad this year, but giving them the opportunities, and they've run with it. In the previous years, it still have been World Series expectations for the Cardinals, and whether they're able to handle that or not, who knows? Like, we're going to find out what this team's made of once you get to postseason baseball, if they get to postseason baseball.
Oh, they're getting there.
But I do think, well, I'm not going to get
We'll get into some
way
of
over my
numbers
skis
that he had earlier today.
I just think this is a group of guys that didn't have the expectations that years past have had on them. Frankly, I think a lot of fans were out on the Cardinals, so they could kind of do this without those high expectations at the beginning of the season. And then you gain the confidence as the season moves on. And when people start watching, well, you're already locked into that mode.
I like that expectations point because there was an interview earlier today with Craig Breslow on radio out in Boston, T-Bone. I'm not sure if you saw this, but Breslow was pushed on the Roman Anthony situation. For those not familiar, Roman Anthony is the top prospect in Major League Baseball, not just for the Red Sox, but in the entire sport. And he's very clearly ready for the big leagues. Like, there's no question about it. He is ready to go. He's putting up crazy numbers down in AAA. And yet he's not up for a team on the Boston Red Sox that's lost 5 consecutive games. They came into the season with real expectations. And now everybody is calling for Roman Anthony to be up. So Breslow was on with their flagship station today, and they push him on this. They first ask, why is he not up? He goes into this full thing about, hey, we want him to be all the way ready, not just to come up, but to stay here for the next decade, right? And they're like, okay, well, let me get into this with you, Brez. And they like really go after him. And they're like, how could you possibly say that he's not ready to go when he's doing all of these things? And Breslow's like, well, listen, like, we don't want him to have the pressure, all of these different things. And I was thinking to myself, like, God, that is the Cardinals the last 3 years. Because they were talking about him coming up, being inserted into like the 5-hole, and then immediately being asked to be the savior. Dude, does that sound familiar to you guys? How many times has that happened to a Cardinals prospect? I'm thinking immediately of Dylan Carlson.
Yeah, where he hit, third?
Clean up in a playoff game in that 2020 COVID season where he was immediately asked to be more than what he was capable of. We saw this with, now, Johan Oviedo was not a big prospect the same way that Carlson was, but Oviedo was asked to be something that he was unprepared for early in his career here in St. Louis. I think that's what's changed this year as well, is these guys don't have the pressure of winning because the team wasn't expected to win. And they're not being asked to be the savior. They're just, hey, go out there and play. Just go play. And that changes a lot about what you can be and what you're comfortable being as a player.
And I think kind of to that point, you mentioned like last year, kind of going through that, what would it have been if the young guys were the team took over last year rather than this year? I don't know what they would have been, but I do think it was their team last year, and it just happened to have bigger names on it, like Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and Contreras. And I think it was kind of a eye-opening moment to where you look at that 2024 team and you go, hey, Goldschmidt, Arenado didn't perform well for the St. Louis Cardinals. They were supposed to be the franchise pillar. Contreras misses a bunch of time. And it was, hey, we're not going to bring back Goldie, but you guys saw what happens. If you guys don't take the next step, you're going to just repeat what 24 was, or you're going to be worse. And they remember what that was like in August and September. Look, they made moves at the deadline. 2 weeks in, Mo was saying, okay, we got to cut payroll. We're shipping out Armstrong. We're shipping out Tommy Pham. And we're only keeping Fetty because we know he's going to help us next year. I think those guys had that moment then of, okay, if we don't take our games to the next level in the offseason, when the front office did say we are going to do this transition, they knew they were going to be playing in an empty ballpark like it had been at the beginning of the year. No fans would start to trickle their way back in. I think it was the best case scenario to your point of, okay, not to rush it into, hey, these guys should take over this team in 2024, though I don't know if it was the right or wrong way to handle it. It looks like it is going to be something that we can look back on and say it was beneficiary for them to not start this until 2025.
I think they went about this in a really roundabout way. Like, it's similar to this. Remember the Sonny Gray signing where they were like, oh, man, we really targeted Lynn and Gibson. But once we got them locked in, we could then go try to acquire Sonny Gray. And Sonny was like, yeah, man, I was close to signing elsewhere. But then I heard from the Cardinals, and I was like, go ahead and get this done. So they nearly missed out on that. And that's kind of how I feel about the 2025 season. It should not have taken this long to get here. They didn't have to go about it the way that they did. But at least we got here, man. At least we're all having a good time now. And they figured it out. They have the right people in place. I listened to another interview yesterday with Rob Cerfolio, and we're hoping to have him on the podcast here in the next couple of weeks. T-Bone and myself over on the Redbird Report. You can find that over at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. We'll have another one recorded later on this afternoon. But Cerfolio was on with the podcast, and he's doing a bunch of these lately where he's just getting the word out on what they're doing with development. So whether it's him being in place or Pierpont, the guy that's now in charge of the pitching development, him clearly having a pretty significant impact on some of the relievers that are on that Memphis shuffle already. Or Ollie bringing in a guy like John Jay, who's clearly improved their outfield defense. Like all of these different things that they did in the offseason, you're just putting players, especially the young guys, in a better position to be able to succeed. And I have not been able to say that in quite a while here in St. Louis.
It's hard for me to get upset that it took the team so long to get here, which, I mean, look, in the times that we were dealing with all of this, it was very frustrating. But you got here. And I think that's the more important part. Like with the Blues whole situation, like, were you pissed that it took 2 years to get to this point, or were you pissed that it even had to get to this point because everybody goes back to the Petrangelo scenario or the Ryan O'Reilly scenario? Yeah, but look at where you're at now. And as long as the window stays open, that's where you don't care about how long it took you to get there. Now, if the window closes after this year and everybody resorts back to where they were, then there's more viable scenarios to be frustrated about. But it doesn't feel like that's in the horizon for the Cardinals right now, because you're seeing all of these young guys come through in impactful situations. The coaching staff is brand new, and you're seeing the impact there. So now you're at the point, just like the Blues, where it's like, look, this looks like an extended window, so who cares that it took us 3 years to get here?
T-Bone, we've gone back and forth a number of times on Jordan Walker and the sustainability of what he's doing, whether or not you're really seeing signs of improvement. And it's worth noting, in his last 3 games, he has 7 strikeouts. Struck out another 3 times last night. Like, it's none of what we're seeing is perfect. But he also took a walk yesterday, which was the first one that he's taken since May 9th. So it had been about 3 weeks since he had taken a walk. That was nice to see. Also ended up with the RBI single. So, again, overall, a solid day. He's contributing toward the winning. And in his last 11 games, he's now batting .335 with an OPS right around 900. Is it starting to come around a little bit for Walker? Are we willing to go there, or are we still in the wait-and-see mode, which is totally understandable if we are? How are we feeling about Walker today after another solid performance, but uneven performance by him last night?
I'm going to let the value Jordan Walker hater go first.
Well, I'm not. To be fair, he was the one guy on this show that I said I would have given a contract extension to after 23. In hindsight, that would have done poorly.
I have signed everybody else on the team.
O'Neal would still be here.
Has signed Jordan Walker.
Bader would still be here.
Yeah. But
is that such a bad thing?
Yes.
He's had a good career.
Yeah. Well, you want Bader now over Victor Scott? No. You don't like Victor Scott.
No, but Bader would be a really nice 4th outfielder for this team.
Hit lefties.
You got Bader. He's Michael Ciani.
He doesn't hit.
He's not here.
I'm still in wait-and-see mode with Jordan Walker, but I am encouraged by what we are seeing. Even though he had 3 strikeouts last night, am I the only one that still felt like he took better at bats?
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
Like I know that's weird to say, like 3 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts. He's really striking out in this stretch. It just looks better. And he is coming through with the hit that you need. Comes up with the single like last night, as you had mentioned. The previous game, he comes up with the huge triple that drives in a run. It feels better, but I want to see it for a longer period of time. I would say I'm riding the fence right now on where I'm at with Jordan Walker. It's encouraging that it's not at the point where we are calling for him, or I was calling for him to potentially be sent down, because to me they are now into this winning window of, hey, we should be pushing now this season rather than runway. But I think they're finding a nice balance in doing both of those, and Walker is starting to look better.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. We got this from the YouTube chat. Kyle says, my whole routine has been thrown off by the time change of the show. I keep thinking that it's almost time to make lunch with you guys on the air.
Oh, yeah, that'll jack you up. Sorry about that.
It is 10:21. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. If you're not familiar with us, we are BK and Ferrario. We do the show from 11 to 2. TMA off early today. The Dotem Golf Tournament is taking place today and tomorrow, so we'll be back in at 10 o'clock tomorrow. For better or for worse, understand it's a very different show. For any of you that really enjoy the TMA style, it's a little different than what we do. Neither one is right or wrong necessarily, just a little bit different. So we appreciate any of you guys giving us a chance this morning for your 10 o'clock hour. Coming up in about 20 minutes, the Cardinals finally operating with a little transparency, which is highly appreciated by all of us in this room. And next, the Maple Leafs sound like a team ready to blow it up. Is that a team that you'd be looking to target this offseason? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
I'm happy to announce that we have negotiated a trade deal.
Is it with China?
Oh, is it Europe? No, it's the Frank Lita Automotive Outlet in Bridgeton.
It's a trade buyout. You can get thousands over book value for any trade-in. Thousands.
He's right, even if you still owe.
What about down payments?
Every vehicle is just one dime down. A dime. New vehicles with a lifetime warranty, priced under $20,000 and payments under $300 a month. Acres of the hottest pre-owned cars, trucks, and SUVs, all makes, all models, and most come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty.
I need credit.
Just ask for credit amnesty. If you've got a job and a dime, you ride. Plus, you can get thousands over current book value for any trade-in.
And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to the trade buyout.
At the Frank Lita Automotive Outlet
in Bridgeton.
YesLita.com.
YesLita.com.
New 24 Mirage, 19,675, dime down, $290 a month, 72 months at 2% APR, plus tax tag title to qualified buyers.
Welcome to Staples.
Hi, I hear Staples prints it all.
Oh, you bet. Posters, banners.
Can you
There's some DNA that has to change in our team. If you keep getting to the same result, and that's not to dismiss a lot of the good that happened up into it, when you keep getting the same result, there's some DNA that needs to change. And so that's on me now going forward and our staff.
That was Brad Treliving this morning talking to the assembled media up in Toronto. He is the president of hockey operations, general manager, whatever the title is that you want to give him. He's the guy now in Toronto overseeing the team along with Craig Berube.
Yeah, I was going to say, Berube's probably overseeing some of this team now.
Yeah, I would imagine he's got a decent say in what things are going to look like moving forward. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you're a TMA listener, typically this is BK and Ferrario. We appreciate you guys tuning in. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Alex, the Maple Leafs always kind of viewed this as a season where, all right, we're all in for this year, but we've got a bunch of different pivots that we could take. If things went completely off the rails, which was always unlikely, but if it did, hey, we've got assets at the deadline that we can deal. Or if we end up being a good team and we take our shot in the playoffs, we can either re-sign some of these guys or we can decide, okay, you know what? We're making a clean break. And the players that I'm really referencing here are John Tavares and Mitch Marner. Two of the core four, as they've affectionately, or at times unaffectionately been called in Toronto, they're both unrestricted free agents this offseason. It sure sounds to me, based on that quote, while John Tavares may want to be back in Toronto next year, I'm not sure John Tavares has a spot available for him in Toronto next year. I think Mitch Marner is gone. Like, I think the moment that game came to an end for the Maple Leafs, it was over for Mitch Marner in Toronto.
I think he was gone after Game 5 when he watched a lot of pucks go past him and into the back of the net.
So what does this mean, Alex? Like, for the Blues, for the NHL, what does it mean that Toronto appears to be heading in a new direction, really for the first time in, a decade?
Yeah, I mean, really since they drafted Matthews, Marner, and Nylander so high up, because that was the identity of the team. And think of all of the failure that they have had not getting past the second round since those guys were drafted. So I think you have to hone in on what Brad Treliving said there in that piece, talking about there just needs to be a change to the DNA. Like, if you look a little deeper, that's Craig Berube talk. That's not Brad Treliving talk about the Maple Leafs. That's Craig Berube saying, look, if you want to have success in the playoffs, you can't have success the way that we have formed this roster. And I think that's what you're going to see. They have $25 million in cap space, and right now they only have a total of 7 forwards under contract. Their defense is under contract for next year. Their goaltending's under contract. They've got $25 million with 7 forwards. You can reconstruct that roster if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you're going to have to do it somewhat identical to the way that the Florida Panthers, and I guess you could say the Carolina Hurricanes, have formed their rosters. Now, I'm not talking about going out there and getting a Matthew Tkachuk or a Sam Reinhart, but look at how the Florida Panthers are constructed. They've got offensive depth from top to bottom in their 4 lines of offense, but they all play one style of hockey. Paul Maurice has got them just as easy little soldiers on the ice, where you go to the front of the net, you play physical, and you push through people. I would say there's about 3 guys on the Maple Leafs that did that this past season. So I think what you're going to see for Toronto is you're going to see a lot of physical presence players brought into that roster. You're going to find them trying to find an identity for a third or a fourth line that Craig Berube can rely on. You're going to see if they can find some depth of scoring. And frankly, it wouldn't surprise me if the Maple Leafs go out there and try and throw as much money as possible to Sam Bennett so that they can get a guy who's got a certain style that everybody else tries to emulate.
I wonder if Berube just says, you know what, we don't want more $10+ million players, though.
I mean,
we're going to live in that $6 to $8 million range, kind of similar to what Doug Armstrong has done here. We've got our superstars. Matthews and Nylander are superstars. I think this is something that we maybe don't give enough credit to in sports in general, is like the mentality of what it requires to be a superstar in the NHL, right? And like for a lot of these guys, they've spent their entire careers not having to do the little things because they have other players that are able to do that, right? Part of what makes Steph Curry, to me, such a unique and special basketball player is that he does all of the tough stuff for a basketball team while also being the superstar. He's the guy that runs around and does all of the crazy cuts that you would typically ask of a role player, like your 3-and-D player in the NBA. That's Steph Curry, though, for the Warriors, and has been for the entirety of his career. The NFL, if you got a slot receiver that is a dirty work guy. That also includes getting into the middle of the field and blocking on running plays. That's not a particularly fun job for a 5'11", 200-pound receiver, right? But you got to do it. It's part of what makes a good team. So for the Maple Leafs, to kind of bring this back to them, they've had guys in that like middle six area now where they're superstars, and they're not going to do that dirty work stuff. That's not their game. They need to add that to the roster. They need Braden Shin. They need their, like, Tyler Bozak. Like, those style of players to their roster, that's what they're missing right now. And so I'm not sure that you go out there and acquire Sam Bennett to be that necessarily. I think you will go acquire whoever you think is the next Sam Bennett. The guy that 4 years from now will get the Sam Bennett contract that he's getting. That's who you're trying to buy low on. And so this brings us to, like, if they're going to make those changes, that means guys are likely to be available. Either they're unrestricted free agents, and that's Tavares and Marner. We can talk about them later on today. But also potentially players on their roster currently could become available. Alex, we've talked in the past about Nick Robertson, Jason Robertson's brother, who is a really talented player, but he's smaller. He's shot first. He has a lot of the things, though, that the Blues a year ago would have been looking for. Do you have interest in anybody else from their roster if they end up really just like selling on a bunch of different pieces?
Not one player on that roster. Not one player I've interested in. Now, I know a lot of people would say Matthew Nyes. You're not getting Matthew Nyes. Matthew Nyes, Trey Leaving even said in his press conference, we're going to lock him up as quick as possible. Like, sure, if we're talking Austin Matthews or Nylander, yeah, I'd be interested, but those guys aren't getting traded. But, I mean, listen to the other guys that they have that aren't unrestricted free agents. Max Domi, Calle Yarncrook, Scott Lawton. Or, I'm sorry, these aren't unrestricted free agents. Yeah, these are guys that are under contract. Max Domi, Calle Yarncrook, Scott Lawton. Like, are you trading for any of those guys?
Can I be honest? Might be okay with Max Domi. It would not be my first choice.
I thought you were going to say Scott Lawton. I was going to go, dude, they just missed on that one.
And I've always been kind of out on Max Domi because he's good for short spans.
Well, that's why now he's down to 3 years remaining on his contract at $3.5 per year. That's an okay deal. And in the new landscape in the NHL, if I've got a third-line center that's making $3.5 million, he brings some of that grit to the table. If he ends up being a fourth-line player, I'd be fine with a $3.5 million fourth-line player for a year, maybe 2 years, depending on what happens down the road with a Dalibor Dvorsky. It would not be my first choice. But if the Blues are in a spot where they're looking at, like, hey, we either pay $11 million now for Sam Bennett, because the price seems to go up by $1 million every day that we get on the air. If the price is escalating exponentially on Bennett, Tavares is not an option. Brock Nelson is not an option. We're striking out on the trade market because teams just aren't really moving guys the way that we thought they would. Hey, Max Domi isn't the worst thing in the world for us. I don't think that would be a terrible option for the Blues.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay the price to acquire him because I don't think that is what you need. I frankly think he's kind of a liability defensively. He's got the grit, which is obviously, and you're right, 3.75 isn't bad. If they get him, I wouldn't be upset, but I think the price would be steep to what you'd trade for him. But
I have a low bar to clear this offseason.
Yeah,
like,
I could tell.
Let's be honest. We love Sonny. The bar to clear from Sonny to an improvement on that third-line center is not overly high, especially offensively. And so for Max Domi, I think he clears that.
If I could be honest, I would rather just put Dalibor Dvorsky in that role than have Max Domi.
I would not.
Yeah,
I'm not there.
I would take my lumps with that.
He wasn't even playing for his national team, dude. They scratched him.
I get it, but I would take my lumps with him and Sundqvist on a line and have him kind of learn the ropes as a winger with Sundqvist as a centerman, then I would go get a Max Domi. But
fair enough.
Beyond that, I'm not trading for Nick Robertson anymore. I mean, look, Craig Berube and Jim Montgomery coach very similarly. And this dude couldn't even crack the lineup for Craig Berube. And now we're talking about another winger. There's no way. And defensively, I think they're probably fine with defense, but they don't have anybody that matches what you need. So the Toronto Maple Leafs went from a team that you looked at and you say, man, I would love to have a Marner. I'd love to have a Robertson. I'd love to have a John Tavares. I've gone from that to now looking at them saying, I don't know if there's anybody off that roster I want because they don't play the style that you need. What we saw in the playoffs against Winnipeg, none of these guys made you better.
1 year ago, I would have been all in on the Blues acquiring Nick Robertson.
We were all in on the Blues acquiring Nick Robertson.
Like, even that roster today, I would be like, yeah, you've got to go acquire him. He makes all the sense in the world. You're not going to have to give up an arm and a leg for him. He's 23 years old. He fits into the timeline that you have as a team. Like, all of the things that they were looking for, Nick Robertson at least provides some answers for them. Yeah. But you now have Nick Robertson.
You wouldn't got a better Nick Robertson than Dylan Holloway.
And you have Zach Bolduc, and you have Jimmy Snuggerud, and you have Jake Neighbors and Jordan Kyrou. Like, you have enough wingers at this point that, barring a trade, if you make a big deal, okay, maybe then you get yourself back into the category of potentially being interested in him. But barring something unforeseen, I do not believe that he is somebody, or really any wingers are interesting to me this offseason. I think the Blues exclusively need to be shopping this offseason, forward-wise, for a second or third line center. Mm-hmm. If you are not a certainty as a center, not a guy that I'm moving from wing to center, but somebody that plays down the middle, I'm not interested in you this offseason for the Blues.
Yeah. The team that I'd actually be looking at that got eliminated is the Carolina Hurricanes, if you're looking at pieces to go after this offseason. Now, trade-wise, I don't think they're going to be trading anybody, but the free agents, we talked about Jack Roslovic. They've got a guy that you can go after there, target a third-line center that would make sense. They play, and I know they got bounced in the playoffs, but they lost to the Florida Panthers. They play a style that matches more of what the Blues are trying to do than what the Toronto Maple Leafs are trying to do, which I didn't realize this. Would you guys be in on Brent Burns?
I mean, he's like 100 years old.
He's 40 years old. He's a right-shot defenseman. But didn't we just do this with another 40-year-old that was pretty good?
I'd be fine with it.
6 goals, 29 points.
I just don't, what's the spot on the lineup that he's taking?
Third pair.
Over Tyler Tucker?
No, Tucker's taking Suter's spot.
So, I mean, if they can remove Nick Leddy
from the equation. You'd have to move Leddy or Falk off of this one, and then you put that one in there. In that scenario,
sure.
This is a better Erik Karlsson one. I didn't realize he was a free agent in this one, but the Carolina Hurricanes would be the team I would be looking at saying, who can we get off of their roster before I'd be doing that with the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, I'd be fine with a Brent Burns. My bar to clear for the Blues this offseason is not all that high. No. I don't need them to go make a huge splashy move. If they could, if one becomes available for them, great. But really what we're looking for this offseason is, can you find a top 4 defenseman on the right side? If so, wonderful. If not, you really don't need to make a move defensively if you don't want to. And then for your forward group, can you find a guy that fits in as a second-line center that is a clear upgrade from Braden Shin? If so, great. If not, okay, just find somebody that's better than Oscar Sundqvist as your third-line center.
Yeah.
And preferably somebody on a shorter-term deal, because you'd like to have that spot open for Dalibor Dvorsky within the next couple of seasons. I do not expect that to be this season, but 2026, 2027, somewhere around that time, the hope is, the belief I think within the organization is Dalibor Dvorsky will eventually be your long-term answer at that spot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't think that the Maple Leafs, other than Max Domi potentially, I think he's the only guy really that makes sense for them. And John Tavares, if you want to talk about the unrestricted free agents, also would be a guy that I'm legitimately interested in.
That's the one, and I know a lot of people are out on. That's the one that I look at and I say, look, I would go after that player, because I think for the role that you'd be signing him for, 2 years, $6 million, I think it plays perfectly into a third-line center that provides offensive upside.
He wouldn't be the first guy that goes from being seen as the savior for one organization to taking on a lesser role in another organization and goes on to have a lot of success. You remember a guy from Buffalo that was viewed as doesn't love the game, can't get it done,
Jack Eichel.
Not a big time player.
Just thinking Ryan Miller.
Ends up going to another team via trade in this scenario and is named captain and then wins the Stanley Cup, or I guess wins the cup and then is named captain.
Tyler Bozak.
Ryan O'Reilly was this. They're not the same player. They're very different. They're very different personalities, all of these different things. But just because John Tavares didn't get it done while in Toronto does not mean that he's some bad player or that he's overrated schmuck. The guy scored 38 goals last year and could absolutely help the Blues. Well, but it all comes down with him to price and term.
But look at the guy that I brought up in the past too, Joe Pavelski. When he was with San Jose. The year that he left the San Jose he scored 38 goals for them, and they lost to the Blues in the Western Conference Final. He then goes to Dallas, signs as a free agent where he played about 17 minutes a night, second-line center, scored 14 goals for them and helped them get to the playoffs. And then from there, 25 goals, 27 goals, 28 goals, 27 goals. And that was all the way up till age 40. You bring in a guy who doesn't have to be the guy. And if you're John Tavares, man, you come in and you're behind Shen, you're behind Thomas. You're a third-line center that just to go out there and play hockey again. Now, I don't know if he's got any interest in that, but That's an ideal spot if you're that type of player where you just had to deal with all of the pressure for the last 10 years.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. We appreciate all the TMA listeners sticking along with us. This comes from Man Bay 2004.
This will be good.
Morning, guys. You seem to actually know a little bit about sports, which is weird to hear this time of the day.
Jeez.
It's a nice change of pace,
Whoa.
but just so you know, at 10:50, you're supposed to start reading emails. Come on, man. 10:57. You're supposed to start reading emails attacking Jackson Burkett and harassing a local sports news anchor. So let me know where to send that email, please, and thanks.
Send it to the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. We'll read them there. But you can attack, in place of Jackson, you can attack BK.
We are way ahead of clock. I'll say that right now.
Yeah, we are.
Like where we're at right now, we're about 7 minutes ahead of where we should be.
The goal for you is to get into BK and Ferrario on time.
No chance.
Yeah, no chance.
Impossible.
No chance.
It's never been done. But well, actually, that's not true. There have been times where we get in at 10:58.
And then we have to add 3 minutes of spots because we weren't ready for it. We're always late to our show.
There is like a 10-minute grace period one way or the other as to when we will get into our show. It is what it is. This is not us complaining, I promise. It's just it becomes almost like a guessing game for us. When will we get into
Kind of fun.
God only knows.
I like it. I'm great at guessing games.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we will begin our show. Have the Cardinals emerged as a clear-cut contender in Major League Baseball? But next, the Cardinals are officially operating with a little bit of transparency, and I, for one, appreciate it. We'll talk about that next year on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals took down the Orioles last night 6-4 as they take 2 of 3 from Baltimore. They are off today, and tomorrow night they will start a 3-game set at the Texas Rangers. Matthew Liberatore will be on the mound for Game 1 for the Cardinals. 7:05 will be first pitch. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. CMLondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alex, you said there's some news in the NHL?
Yeah, apparently the Washington Capitals sent an email out to the season ticket holders saying that this upcoming season, the 25-26, is going to be Alex Ovechkin's final NHL season. Wow. He's a UFA after this year. Obviously, the dude's 39 years old, will be 40 at the start of the season. Just broke Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record. So one more year for Alex Ovechkin, and then that will be it for the Great Eight.
Hell of a career, man. 44 goals this past season at, age 38?
And if he didn't get hurt when he broke whatever it was that he broke, I think it was his collarbone or something like that, he probably would have touched, he would have touched 50-plus goals.
Just an absolutely ridiculous player. Obvious Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever do it. One more season of
I hope we get 50 goals from
Alex Ovechkin in the NHL. All right, so we did want to talk a little bit about the Cardinals here, Alex. They're playing great baseball, but it's beyond just that. It's the style of baseball they're playing. It's the personalities. Like I just enjoy hearing Brendan Donovan and Mason Wynn and Victor Scott and Jordan Walker. There's just a lot of likable players on this team. But there's one other thing that feels a little different about this season. It's the way that the Cardinals are operating when it comes to transparency. I mentioned earlier today that I had listened to an interview with Rob Cerfolio, who's an assistant general manager. He was on with a podcast yesterday, Deal on the Cards, and he spent 25 minutes just kind of explaining their process on things. And it was a good interview, and I highly recommend checking it out. We're hoping to have Rob Cerfolio on with us on the Redbird Report at some point in the next couple of weeks. But that's one example of what I'm talking about. Just some transparency, some openness with this fan base that's really been closed off from the organization now for, I would say, definitely since COVID, but even dating a little bit pre that. But Ollie Marmol is also operating with some more transparency, I believe, this season. I think he's always been mostly transparent with us behind the scenes, but at times I think he can be a little bit guarded with some of the stuff that he says publicly. He said this yesterday, and this is from Derek Gould's piece over on the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Quote, "It's not just Ivan Herrera's arm that he's developing. A lot of it is game calling and when to flip the script and when not to, when to stick with it. Even after he catches on a day like today, he sits with Dusty for quite some time, goes over every single pitch. It's extremely important he gets that immediate feedback." He went on to talk about, what they're doing with Herrera, why he is primarily DHing right now, how they can get him to continue to improve behind the plate, and whether you think Ivan Herrera is a future everyday catcher or you think he's a future first baseman or a future DH, whatever it is. I care that they explain the plan publicly, that they tell us, hey, this is kind of what we're trying to do here. And the same thing I think is true for the pitching plans or an in-game decision, whatever it might be. I don't mind if I disagree with the process, right? If I would do it one way and you would do it another, that's cool. That's baseball. A lot of 50-50 decisions are made. But there have been times that there have been moments in the past where the process doesn't make sense. And then they don't explain it publicly. And there were people that would act as though you're like stupid for not understanding what they're doing without it being publicly explained in a way that makes any sense. I think that's flipping, Alex. I think they're starting to figure this stuff out. Even the other day, T-Bone, when we were at the game, and it was the Tigers game, they had lost the game, and afterwards, Ollie comes into his press conference, he's like, man, I'm going to be up all night thinking about some of the decisions that I made in that game. And many of them were like, I think you were fine. There's like one decision that maybe I think you could have gone the other way with, but it was like a 60-40 choice. But I liked that he was open and honest about that with the fans. And I think there needs to be more of it. And this is just the latest example of it, is what they're doing with Herrera and why they're going about it the way that they are.
Yeah, for the longest time, it just felt like the Cardinals would hide information or not want to relay information about certain things that they were doing, and you would sit there wondering. But also, it just felt like when you would ask about it, you'd get talked down to. It would be like, well, why would you even ask me that question? To where now, people aren't even really asking it. It's just you're relaying the information. Like I know in that circumstance, you're talking about Ivan Herrera, but there have been numerous occasions this year to where it felt like they are telling you what the game plan is before you get there. And that's what's felt like has been just displaced for the last 3 seasons versus now is just the disconnect between the Cardinals fans and the Cardinals direction of what they were looking for, because the longest time we would see the texts coming in, we would see all the questions like, what are the Cardinals trying to accomplish? And now, not only does it seem clear, but they're backing every single plan that they're talking about, giving the runway to the players. Well, look at Jordan Walker right now. He's not coming out of the lineup, talking about the pitching and giving Matthew Liberatore ample opportunities to be the starting pitcher.
And explaining why Walker's not in the lineup when he's not in the lineup.
Yes, like there's been so much over the last 3 years to be like you're everything is hidden away, and you're just supposed to figure it out yourself. It's like you're doing a puzzle in the dark, but you can't see anything. Now it seems like they're putting everything in front of you and saying, here's what we want you to do. Now please go do it.
Remember when they made Jordan Walker a platoon player? And we were just supposed to accept that and not question it and be like, oh, yeah, no, this makes a lot of sense. It's a really smart way to handle your 21-year-old best prospect in a generation type of an asset. Like, yeah, that's definitely the way that you should continue to develop him at the major league level. And they're like, no, it makes sense. Like, it's the best thing for the team. Sure. Do you think this is the best way to develop the player, though? Because is it that ultimately the goal here when you have this kind of a player? How many times has Mo said if a guy's not playing every day and he's a prize prospect, he's not going to be here?
Right.
And
look at JC.
Yeah, exactly. And then they did the exact opposite thing with Jordan Walker. So I just think in general, the stuff they're doing makes a lot more sense. They're explaining it better publicly. They have this openness with the fan base seemingly going almost back and forth. And just the processes that are in place, it just all, you look at it, you watch it, you feel it, and you're like, okay, yeah, I get that. And even when they lose, I walk away thinking, all right, they lost. It's not like the end of the world every time that they lose a baseball game this year. And that's a far cry from what it has been in recent seasons, where there'd be moments where you'd watch them and it would be one game and it's just like, oh, well, that was it. That's the season right there. Everything's going to go to hell. I haven't felt that way. They lost game 1 in the series against Baltimore, and we all came in the next day and were like, yeah, lost a game. They'll probably win the series.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about it. We said we're not speaking of it.
We pretended the game
keep
didn't
bringing
happen.
it up.
Yeah, damn it.
And guess what? They won the next 2, and now you have won, 8-1-1 in your last 10 series?
Yeah.
And you're like 10 games above 500 on the road since that series against
remember
the Mets?
when I questioned this team on the road and be like, that's the problem with this team?
Yeah, and we brought up, we were like, hey, is it possible that just the Mets and the Red Sox series were outliers? And it sure looks right now as though that was the case.
Kind of bad when you did it to the Red Sox. So, I mean, the Red Sox aren't good right now.
That's true. That was a bad series.
Kind of like the White Sox series from last year, right?
The Red Sox are going through their moment of not speaking the truth. As we just talked about earlier, Breslow's like, oh, this guy's not ready, and we don't want to put him under pressure. Dude, he's got like a 980 OPS. What do you mean he's not ready? We're flailing in the wind right here at the big league level. Breslow's out here lying to the fan base. Kudos, Cardinals.
It's not just the winning. The winning is huge. That is the starting point for everything. None of the rest of this really matters all that much, or it's certainly not talked about the same way, unless you're winning. But since they're winning, there's also all of this other stuff that you can get into, and they've been better on all of that stuff too. And it's the chicken or the egg thing. I think a lot of that has to do with the winning. I think a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff leads to a better process that's put in place, this better feedback loop for players when they're going up and down to the minor league level of, hey, this is what you need to do in order to get back here, and then just stuff is put into a position to have success at the major league level. It's a hell of a lot of fun to watch. Cardinals 8 games above 500 heading into the off day today. They will begin a series in Texas tomorrow night against the Rangers, a team that has not hit it well, but does have some pretty impressive pitching. So we'll certainly be discussing that series as we go along here on BK and Ferrario. In 15 minutes, we're talking to Eno Sarris. He's one of the best in the business when it comes to breaking down pitching. So what does he think about the Cardinals pitchers, which have a terrible strikeout rate, but are finding a way to have success? Does Eno believe in this? We'll get into that with him at 11:15. Coming up next, have the Cardinals emerged as a legitimate contender in the National League? We'll talk about that here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, the Cardinals are 8 games above 500. They are playing inspired baseball. They have won 8 of their last 10 series. The only series that they have lost in their last 10 is the series against the Detroit Tigers. They had every opportunity to win that series. Probably should have, frankly, won that series. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. If you are just tuning in, just a heads up, check out the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you can go to find it. We did do the 10 o'clock hour today, and for those that are just tuning in, we will also do the 10 o'clock hour tomorrow as TMA has the Dotem this week, so we'll do the extra hour each of these 2 days. Alex, the Cardinals 8 games above 500, and as of today, would officially, I believe, be in a playoff spot. They are tied with the San Diego Padres for that second spot in the wild card, but both of them would get in under the current scenario. Have they emerged in your mind as a clear contender? Like, are you now looking at the Cardinals and no longer is it like just talking about the runway or anything? No, the Cardinals should be viewing themselves at this point as a contender in the National League, in your opinion.
Are we talking World Series contender? Or are we talking like teams that could get to the playoffs?
I'm glad you clarified.
Because when I hear contender, I think World Series contender.
Let's start here. How many World Series contenders are there in Major League Baseball right now?
If we're going in the National League, I would say 3. I think it's the Dodgers, I think it's the Phillies, and I would put the Padres there.
Maybe
how many?
Maybe I'm being gracious. I'd say 5 in the NL.
I think there are 5 National League World
Cardinals
Series.
Cardinals are one
contenders.
of them.
No. Padres, I think, can win a World Series. Mets can. Dodgers, Cubs, Phillies. I think those 5 are World Series contenders.
You think the Cubs can?
Yeah. Dude, they're playing great baseball.
I know, but I'm not in on the Cubs yet.
They're the one that I would put like 5th, and I'm on the fence. Like, there's a chance in a week I change my tone on them.
One you guys did not mention.
The Giants.
And I don't know that they're even going to make the playoffs, but if they get in, I think they will be scary.
Yeah, the Braves.
The Braves.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I think the Braves actually will be in the playoffs now that they're back to full health.
Yeah, Acuna coming back, Strider coming back, those are huge additions. Like, those are, if a team made those kinds of additions at the deadline, we'd be like, holy bleep, like, what? You just got a #1 starter and a Hall of Fame level player at the deadline, and like that would be the Dodgers going out and getting Max Scherzer and Trey Turner at the deadline a couple of years ago.
They did that.
The Braves just got those guys back. They're only a few games back of the wild card spot right now. Like, I think they'll be back in this thing. If you don't want to include them, cool, but I would have 4. In the American League, is it fair of me to say there are 2?
Yankees and the Tigers?
Yeah. And, like, it might just be the one.
Yeah,
it might just be the Yankees that are a legit World Series contender this year. So to answer your question, I answered your question with a question. I think there are like 5 or 6 World Series contenders this year, and no, I would not have the Cardinals in that category.
And that's where I wasn't in yet. Like, and I don't know if I ever will be in unless they make some massive trade at the deadline of looking at this team like, yeah, they probably could push for a World Series because they're just not at that stage yet. But, yeah, I'm all in on this team being a contender, beating a playoff team. Do I think they'll make the playoffs? I think it's a really good shot, but I'm with you. I think the Atlanta Braves are coming back into this problem-solving scenario, and if that's the case, somebody's got to fall out of it. And if you were to say the Mets, Padres, or Cardinals, I'd lean more towards the Cardinals than any of those other teams. But everything about this roster right now and what they've been able to accomplish tells me they're a playoff team. And then, guys, look at what June holds. Like, the 2 tough series that they have are the Dodgers and the Cubs. Otherwise, like, and I'm not trying to diminish anything, but I've seen them have success against these teams. The Royals, the Blue Jays, the Brewers, the White Sox, the Reds, the Guardians.
Oh, I'm afraid of the White Sox.
If we're going off of last year, then I can understand that sentiment. But, like, June opens up to where this success might just continue. So it's hard for me to look at this team and find a spot where I say, no, I don't think they could contend. I think they can. It's just when you get to the playoffs, I don't know how deep you can actually go.
And that's an open-ended question that we can continue to discuss throughout the season, but certainly more as we get closer to the playoffs. I heard the Fast Lane talking about this yesterday. I just wholeheartedly disagree with some of their the premise on this. I think it was Kerry that asked the question that you just did. Are the Cardinals a World Series contender? And they all agreed with us. They're not a World Series contender. Totally fair. We agree on that starting point. But then the question that was a follow-up that was asked, and it's a fair one, I just disagree with it. Shouldn't the Cardinals just sell no matter what then? If they're not a World Series contender, then why would you consider holding on Helsley or Fetty when you could get a real return for them, or potentially even like going a step further, holding on to them and buying when you're clearly not a World Series contender? And my retort to that would be because there's value in this. it's not just every year is World Series or bust. Now, I know some will text in immediately and say, well, then that's a loser's mentality. Why do you view it that way? Because I think there is value in a team like the Blues making it to the playoffs this year. There is value to me in a team like the Cardinals getting there, getting a taste of it, taking that next step to then hopefully in the offseason push on the accelerator and then potentially become a World Series contender in 2026 and beyond. This can be that first step towards whatever contention looks like. And beyond that, T-Bone, you brought this up in our pre-show meeting today. The problem with not capitalizing on a year like this is what the Orioles are going through right now. You never know when it's your best chance until it's over. Like the Cardinals this season don't look like a World Series contender to all of us, but they might be one. And they might be just hiding in plain sight the way that the Arizona Diamondbacks were a couple of years ago. We may look back 10 years from now and say, that was the Diamondbacks' best chance. That year that they went to the World Series, they did not capitalize on it, but they tried. That could have been their best chance to win a World Series. Last year might have been the best chance for Baltimore in this current core group of players. So if you're the Cardinals and an opportunity presents itself to you this year, don't spit in the face of the baseball gods. Go try to do something with it. Like, go take your shot. See where it ends up going. Yes, there is downside to it of missing out on whatever the return is for Ryan Helsley or Eric Fetty. Go take the qualifying offer. You get a top 75 pick for one or both of them, and then move on. Or re-sign them. Like, you get to decide this offseason what your plans are moving forward. But this team, at least based on the way they are right now, and I reserve the right to change this depending on how they're playing at the deadline, but
understandable.
Based on the way that they're playing right now, has earned the right to be in the contender class, not for a World Series, but for the playoffs. And you should be either holding or buying if that's the way that you view your roster.
Yeah, I don't even view it as holding. I think you buy. I think that is the path that you go if you are going to be a contender in the playoffs or a team to contend to be in a playoff spot. I would circle the team they're getting ready to face, the Texas Rangers, right? They go out, they have the huge splash, they win the offseason heading into the 2022 season. They signed Simeon, they signed Seager. At that time, they had signed John Gray. I think the next offseason when they signed Jacob deGrom, who, by the way, hasn't pitched for them in any meaningful games yet. And in 22, they end up finishing that year 68-94. 2023, nobody really believed in them because they had such a bad bullpen, and they almost fell apart in the home stretch. They make the playoffs, they go on and they win a World Series, and it was surprising to everyone. And you thought, okay, that's the beginning of the run for the Texas Rangers, right? They're going to get these reinforcements back. DeGrom will eventually be back. And what happens? Last year, they go 78-84, miss the playoffs. Right now, they're 3 games below 500, and there's a lot of talk if they're going to miss the playoffs again.
They fired their hitting coach already. It might be Skip Schumacher that's managing the team a year from now. Like, it's hard to know for certain from the 3-1-4. Guys, until you can answer the question of who starts a game too confidently, you're not considered a true contender. I can answer that confidently right now, and I have no hesitation. It's Matthew Liberatore. Matthew Liberatore is your number 2 starter. He wasn't viewed that way going into the season, but Brandon Pfaadt wasn't viewed as a guy that could help the Diamondbacks in the playoffs up until, I don't know, October. Like, he wasn't that pitcher until he got the opportunity to become that pitcher on the national stage. Dude, Matthew Liberatore is pitching like a number 1 right now. Forget being a number 2. He's pitching like a number 1. I don't know if that'll continue into October. I have no idea. But right now, I can say that without hesitation, without reservation. That's your guy.
Right now, they need their Brandon Pfaadt. They need to go find somebody that's going to be that 3 that's got decent swing and miss stuff, because I don't think that guy exists right now. And maybe that ends up becoming Liberatore, because like the only hesitation I would have of saying he's your 2 right now is how's his body hold up in his first year as a full starter, and the Cardinals are going to monitor that throughout the year. But that's what they're missing. They're missing a number 3 with just a little bit of swing and miss that you feel comfortable that is going to give you a fighting chance when you go into a game 3 of a series.
We also got this text. It's something that we asked about at the ballpark the other day, T-Bone. Somebody said, doesn't Libby have an innings count? No. According to the Cardinals, no. Now, we'll see if that changes. But as of today, when we asked about this around the club, when we were out there last week, they basically said, hey, listen, we don't have like a specific innings limit in mind. There's not like a whatever he did last year, plus 20. That's what a lot of teams will hold their starters to. Right now, Liberatore feels fine. And I think their perspective on this thus far is we're going to see how he feels. If he ends up running into a wall, sure, maybe then they'll hold him back a little bit. But as of now, he seemingly feels great. and they're just going to kind of play it by ear to see where Matthew Liberatore is at. And I think that's the smart way to play this.
Yeah, and the crazy part about all of this, too, is like we're talking about adding that piece, and the Cardinals have the weaponry to go out there and actually add that piece at this deadline, where years past it's been like, well, they can make the trade, but you're taking a hit towards their future. I mean, Nolan Gorman might be a piece that could get that for you, and I don't think he's a part of their future plans right now.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. 314-399-9646 is the Air Covered Service text line. YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Coming up next, I do want to ask Eno Sarris about what has unlocked Matthew Liberatore's arsenal, and how does he view a pitching staff that's bottom 10 in strikeout rate but top 12 in ERA? Is that something that he can buy into? We'll talk to Eno Sarris about that next year on 101 ESPN. Alex, when we've got pitching questions, there's one man we call. His name is Eno Sarris. He writes about baseball over at The Athletic. He does excellent work, and we always appreciate his time here on BK and Ferrario. He joins us today via the Callier and Thompson hotline. Eno, appreciate the time as always. It's under much better circumstances this year than it has been in previous iterations. How you doing today, my friend?
Unexpectedly good circumstances, if you ask me, I guess.
Yeah, us too. We were not anticipating Matthew Liberatore with a 2.7 ERA, Cardinals 8 games above 500 at the 56-game threshold. This was not in our on our bingo card this year.
I expected it all the time, Eno. Knew it was going to happen.
All right, let's get into this, Eno. I want to start with Libby because he's been probably the biggest surprise maybe of any Cardinals player so far this season. He's pitching like a legitimate number 2 starter. He's getting deep into games. The only time that he didn't get 6 innings was a rain-shortened game for him. What happened? How did this take place? What are you seeing under the hood that's allowed for him to become at minimum, mid-rotation starter for the Cardinals?
You know, there's a bit of a trend around baseball, which is that, you know, no matter how good your fastball is, but especially if your fastball isn't amazing, you should throw more of them. And not more of them as in more quantity-wise. You should have as many different fastballs as you can. And the idea is that, you know, each fastball has a platoon split. So four-seamers are a little bit better against opposite-handed guys. Sinkers are better than for same-handed guys. And what we saw when Liberatore first came up was kind of, you know, more of an insistence on the four seam because he's been working on that so long. You know, he's always been throwing the sinker. Now he's really, truly, almost like splitting fastball, four-seam fastball, cutter, and sinker, you know, 3 ways. And that means that if you're a hitter stepping in the box, you're at least going to see 2 different kinds of fastballs, probably even 3, because he'll throw them to any hand. And that means that if you think, oh, I'm going to keyhole him by velo, then and this is he likes to throw the four seam high. If it's high, it's hard. I'm going to hit it. You know. Now you think, oh, it's high, it's hard. Oh crap, that bore in on me. That was actually the cutter. And so he can play off expectations that way. I mean, I guess the long and short of it is he's become more of a pitcher. And I'm not saying that he was a thrower and he didn't have any brains, but like he now throws 6 different pitch types more than 10% of the time, and he's mixing it up. He has an out pitch in the breaking balls, and he's playing all of the rest of it off of that. And it's harder for hitters to know what to expect.
So I guess the big part for us, you know, in St. Louis is just asking the question. And it's because we've been hurt in the past by this, where we get excited for a pitcher, and then the next thing you know, he's not what we thought he was. Does it seem like what he's doing is sustainable to be at this level of a pitcher for the Cardinals?
Like, you know, a 2.7 ERA, it would be a career year. And maybe he has that year and he ends the season with like a 3.2 and, you know, maybe some down ballot conversation. But I think in a given year, he's more of a high 3s guy. One thing that you can point to, despite all the nice things I said about his arsenal and all the stuff he's done, he doesn't strike many guys out. The league average right now is 23%. He's at 21.5%. And that's just going to allow at some point more balls in play, maybe more homers, a little bit the kind of stuff that inflates the ERA.
Yeah, I mean, it's 21% as a strikeout artist on this stat. You know, we'll take it here in a moment. But that guy looks pretty damn good in this rotation right now. When you think about Liberatore's kind of ascent into becoming what he is today, he's 25 years old. He's still, I mean, reasonably young, all things considered. He's been around the big leagues now for like 4 years. What do you think are the lessons to be learned from Matthew Liberatore's development, if anything? Is there anything that you could potentially take away from it?
Well, one thing I looked at was that, you know, the number of young starting pitchers that sort of debut into the big leagues and are good when they're really young is really low. And it's lower than it's been historically. And I think that's kudos to the hitters. The hitters are really good. You know, they're hitting for power. They're ready for you. And I think it's also maybe has something to do with the way we develop pitchers. I think to some extent we develop pitchers in a vacuum, and we say, okay, we want your four seam to have this much ride, and we want your sinker to do this, and we want your slider to do this. If you do all of these things and have the best stuff plus in each of these pitches, you kind of design these pitches, then you will have success. And so and the minor leagues also breeds this because we don't care about results as much as, oh, did you throw hard? Did you get strikeouts? Did you do this? And so you get to the big leagues and it's like, oh, all that's out the window to some extent. You need to get wins. Like you need to get through the lineup. And so what I found is that there are a lot of pitchers like Liberatore that take a little while to get there. And I think the only thing I can say is patience and maybe the old Earl Weaver approach where that's what we did with Liberatore. It's like, bring him in the bullpen, let him get to some taste of some outs. The tough thing is, make sure they use all his pitches, even though he's trying to get outs. But what going up in the major leagues and being in the bullpen and young does for you is it makes you figure out what is your core identity. What is your best pitch? What is your out pitch? And once you figure that, you can build a whole constellation of other pitches around that core identity. And I think that's sort of why it's okay to bring a guy up, have him scuttle, be in the bullpen, have some patience with him, and he can come out the other end. Like, just look at Eric Fetty. You know what I mean? Like, right next to him is a guy that took forever to become who he is.
So speaking of core identity, when you look at the Cardinals pitching staff as a whole, their identity is not having strikeout stuff. I think as a team, the only team that has struck out or has gotten more fewer strikeouts are the Colorado Rockies. So not an ideal spot to be in, but this Cardinals team still has been one of the hottest teams in Major League Baseball. What's going on right now?
Yeah, this is a pitching staff after your heart, right? No stuff whatsoever on the entire staff outside of like Sonny Gray and maybe Matthew Liberatore and Ryan Helsley.
Yeah, I mean, and Sonny's fastball, they're not what they used to be either. So, I have a number of stuff plus. And it does not have a starter for this team as above 100 as a single one. So it did once with Steven Matz, but that was just barely two. And I'm not saying that Steven Matz is perfect, so I'm not saying he needs to move back in.
And you don't even need the disclaimer. That guy ain't starting for the Cardinals anytime soon, so you're good.
Yeah. But I think what they do have, if you look at them, all five of them that are in there right now have great command. They have a number called Location Plus. They're all, as a group, outstanding in that number. And in fact, I'm stalling here real quick because I want to do a team leaderboard here for Location Plus. And this is for all starters. I'm guessing they're near the top. They are fourth in Location Plus. So top five command, bottom five stuff. It is sort of the older Cardinal way, and I hope the genius, hopefully going forward, is that you bring stuff into an environment where they've always valued command, and then maybe you can get both.
That's the hope, right?
In the future, yeah.
So our producer Tanner looked this up last night. He was looking up how many teams have made the playoffs with a bottom 10 strikeout rate from their pitching staff since 2016. So basically the last decade. And the answer was 8. Only 8 teams have been able to make the postseason with a bottom.
How many years?
In the last decade. So since 2016. Only the 23 Rangers. Only the Rangers and Diamondbacks in 2023 got past the divisional round among those teams, though. So it's very rare to have any playoff success with a staff that wins the way that the Cardinals have so far this year. And so that's my long-winded way of asking you this. What can we reasonably expect out of the Cardinals this season, big picture-wise, if this is the kind of staff that they're going to have?
Yeah, that is a great question. I mean, because if you're thinking about, like, are you the Rangers or the Diamondbacks? I don't think so. Because those teams had top 5 offenses in the league. And so, I'd say that the biggest surprise for me, on this team is the Cardinals offense. And what they've done is they've taken the sort of no holes philosophy that they've always had, and added some potential impact. And it's not coming from where I thought. I thought it'd be Jordan Walker, but Ivan Herrera has been a revelation. And it doesn't matter where he plays defensively, just get him in the lineup. And then, the worst hitters other than Walker are all like sort of league average hitters. So it's a long lineup if it's not I still don't think it's a Rangers or a Diamondbacks lineup. Those lineups were pretty killer. It can be a playoff team though, because again they have no holes. They even if their starting rotation doesn't strike that many guys out, it has great command, and there's always the specter of adding. I don't know though. Do you get the sense that this is a team that wants to add this year?
It's the question that, like, it depends who you ask, right? I think the team, their answer would be yes. They would like to see this thing through. I think Mo would like to go out as a winner in his final season at the helm. They held on to Fetty and Helsley with the idea that at least something resembling this would be possible. And also, hey, if it doesn't, we can just sell them at the deadline and get basically the same that we would have been able to acquire in the offseason. But I think they would probably tell you on Truth Serum, our hope is that we can go out there and buy, you know how the Cardinals are, like they're not going to go get the next Juan Soto, but buy like a mid to back end rotation starter and then maybe a bench bat.
Mm-hmm. The interesting thing is that of the teams that have scored more than their opponents this year so far and have a projection that says the opposite will be true, so basically a positive run differential so far and projected to have a negative one, there are four of them. The Cardinals are one. They're the best team so far that's true for. The Reds are another. The Rays are one. And then the Brewers are another.
So the division.
Yeah. So there you go.
Checks out.
What I'd say is in a different division, I would be more pessimistic about these Cardinals' chances. In this division, it seems pretty wide open.
On the offensive side, you mentioned that it surprised you. What about it has surprised you?
Well, I had higher hopes for Jordan Walker, and what I'm starting to see is that some of these new numbers that have come out from Baseball Savant, where they're describing the shape of a batter's swing, are telling us a little bit more about. Telling us a little bit more about what his flaws are, and unfortunately, I think there may have to be some sort of a larger revamp. I'm sure that anybody listening probably agrees with that idea, but he just doesn't. He doesn't have like a great ability to put it's like a hit tool. He's kind of missing a hit tool, and he's got this great bat speed, but there's got to be some change that's made for Walker, and I'm not sure it's happening right now. But Herrera is a big surprise for me. Donovan, I thought, was always a good player. He's been better than I expected this year, and I expected a little bit more out of Arenado, and I think that he might have a little bit more in the tank. So it is to be expected that they have a team that always has a representative lineup, that has no holes, that has decent players at every position. But sort of Donovan playing this well is a little surprising to me. And then the Pages-Herrera combo has been pretty good. So, I think that there's some of these young guys too, Scott and Winn, are kind of coming into their own. So I guess I thought that the younger kids would take a little bit longer. And Scott and Winn being good, with Pages, and the Herrera has made me more excited about this future. Maybe the future is here now,
Eno Sarris is our guest here on 101 ESPN. We always appreciate his time. Eno, before we get you out of here, just one final question, because as you mentioned, some of the projections are not overly kind on the Cardinals. If they ended up becoming a seller, what kind of a return do you think they would be able to get for Ryan Helsley?
Oh, they'd get a pretty good one. I think he would be the best reliever available at the deadline. I think you would want to look at some of the stuff that the Marlins got when they traded Tanner Scott, Jason Adam, the top relievers that have gone in the past. Now, I don't think you're going to get like a Gleyber Torres anymore, like the Yankees got for Aroldis Chapman. What the Cubs got, the Yankees got for Aroldis Chapman to the Cubs. But I do think you would get a good player. I would think it would probably be on the pitching side. You'd get some pitchers. You'd get a pitcher that was close and then you'd get a pitcher that was further away that had just lightning stuff, something like that.
You're the best, man. Appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today, making us smarter about the Cardinals situation.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
yeah, that's Eno Sarris. Appreciate his time as always, joining us here on BK and Ferrari. If you guys missed any of that conversation, be sure to check it out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. Went a little bit long there, coming up in 15 minutes. We'll get into questions and answers. But next, Alex, where do the Panthers rank among the best 3-year spans that we've seen in recent sports memory? Forget just the NHL. This goes beyond that. Winning a cup, going to 2 others in a 3-year stretch, that's crazy business. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Henderson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals took down the Orioles last night 6-4 as they take 2 of 3 from Baltimore. They are off today as they head to the Lone Star State as they'll start a 3-game set with the Texas Rangers tomorrow night. 7:05 will be first pitch. Matthew Liberatore will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See Milano.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So yesterday, the Florida Panthers officially clinched a berth into the Stanley Cup final. They've done so for the 3rd consecutive season. Alex, if I take out the 2020 COVID season, because, I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's not real.
It's the first time we've seen this in like 40 years in the NHL. Since the Oilers, I believe, was the last team to do this. That's remarkable. To go to 3 consecutive Stanley Cup finals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it happens in the NBA. We see that. It happens in the NFL. We see that as well. Major League Baseball is tougher. You don't really see back-to-back opportunities very often, but it happens occasionally. Dude, hockey hurts. Like, literally, it is painful to play this deep into the summer. And the Florida Panthers are doing this year after year after year, and they continue to get back despite playing a very grinding style of play. I wanted to ask you, and I'll open this up to the text line as well at 314-399-9646. We got the extra hour, man. Things are tougher today. Where does this rank among the best 3-year spans that we've seen from recent professional sports memory?
Oof. I mean,
taking into account how difficult it is to accomplish this in the Stanley Cup playoffs compared to other sports.
Yeah, I mean, to put it into hockey sense, you mentioned like no other team has done it other than the Lightning with the fake year than the Oilers. But like the other teams that come to mind that may not have gotten to the Cup final 3 consecutive years, but were dominant. The Detroit Red Wings from 05 to 08 to where they lost in game 6 or 7 against the Anaheim Ducks in the conference final and then won the Stanley Cup and then lost in the Stanley Cup final to the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, they were dominant for 3 straight years, and you're talking about a game 7 where they didn't get to the Stanley Cup final. The Blackhawks, but I don't even know if you could put them in there because it was like bounce in the first round and then cup but you still had that dominant window. That's probably the only ones I could come up with hockey. The Golden State Warriors are the other one that comes to mind. But if we're labeling off of like pain tolerance, it's apples and oranges basketball versus the NHL. So like you give the advantage to what the Florida Panthers have been doing. But I mean, Golden State for 3 or 4 years, it felt like you knew they were going to be an NBA Finals team.
4 consecutive NBA Finals. I think it was actually 5, and they won 3 of those. 3 out of the 4.
Yeah, so they're up there, absolutely.
The Lakers, they had a 3-peat in the early 2000s.
The Heat. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Heat absolutely with LeBron, but
yeah, they went to 4 straight, lost the beginning and the back end of those, but won the middle 2.
Guess you can't put the Astros in here, right, T-Bone? Because they cheated. They don't count.
Oh, don't even get me started.
They don't count. They cheated.
The Chiefs last 3 years.
Yeah, Chiefs absolutely need to be. The Patriots
1-2, went to 3 in a 3-year stretch. Patriots went to like 100 in a row, so they would be a part of this.
But again, man, if you're going pain tolerance, and I'm not trying to take away anything from football because that is a brutal sport to play. And if Kerry Davis is saying you are the toughest person that I know, but to understand what hockey players go through, where it's 4 sets of 7-game series, which is typically what you play through. It's either 6 or 7 you're going to be in, and you're talking about the blocking of shots, taking those checks, going to the front of the net, the sticks to the back of the neck. I mean, it's why the Stanley Cup championship, in my opinion, is the hardest trophy to win, because there is just a grueling pain that you have to go through, and it doesn't matter if you're hurt, you're going to be out there, and then afterwards you talk about your punctured lung or your broken clavicle.
I mean, think about it, like baseball is not the same to play as hockey, right? Like it's not as physical, but you see this where pitchers will come back the year after their teams went on this crazy run into October, be like, man, I am not the same dude. Like, velocities are down. Injuries start to take place. Mm-hmm. And it's part of what made the Astros run, despite the cheating. I understand that, T-Bone. Like, set that aside for a second if you can. It's part of what made them so remarkable to watch.
Yeah.
So they just kept getting back. And then this year, I just saw this. They're like right back into first place in the AL West again this year. They were bad for like 20 games. I was talking to my buddy that works down in Houston. He's like, yeah, they just don't have it this year. I was like, okay, well, guess it's over. That was the end of the road. They trade Kyle Tucker, and it's just done. Bregman's gone, and now here they are. They're right back into this thing with every chance to be back into it. So baseball is up there as well. And so what the Dodgers have done, what the Astros have done, it's definitely in the range with this, but the physicality is just at another level in hockey, man. Getting to 3 consecutive, if they can win back-to-back with 3 consecutive in there, it's up there with the most impressive sports accomplishments that I've seen in the last 20 years. Team accomplishments, at least.
And especially, think of they played this last round against Carolina without Sam Reinhart for, I believe it was 3 games. They didn't have a couple of their defensemen there for them for a few games. We're talking about winning that difficult of a game without some of your best players on the ice. And I mean, Matthew Tkachuk is basically 50% right now, maybe lower than that, and he's still finding ways to contribute. And that's why it's when you get to 3 straight, it's not even just 3 straight. Like what Florida's doing, you mentioned, not since the Oilers other than the Tampa Bay Lightning, but it's just when you're in a window of getting close to a Stanley Cup final. If you make the conference final in 3 or more years, to me, you are building something that not many teams have the ability to do.
Edmonton's trying to do exactly that. They continue tonight against the Dallas Stars. Game 5, Edmonton up 3-1 in that series. This is in Dallas. Dallas trying to come back. Edmonton trying to get to the 2nd consecutive Stanley Cup final for them. That game will be on ESPN, 7 o'clock puck drop. Oilers versus the Stars. Can people hear that here on 101 ESPN, T-Bone?
I believe they
don't have
can.
the schedule in front of me, unfortunately. We don't have the screen.
I believe so.
Yeah, okay, 6:30 pregame coverage.
We think you can hear that right here on 101 ESPN coming up.
Hey, I got a little bit of breaking news for everybody. That Ovechkin report, apparently it was a fake email that was sent out to season ticket holders. Somebody hacked into the Capitol stuff and they sent a fake email. Yeah, because apparently people are reporting now that that was a fake
weird,
email to send out by people.
It was quite the way to announce it.
Yeah, why would Ovechkin do
email and no national person had it? But I mean, Spittin' Chicklets tweeted out saying I can't believe this is the last year of Ovechkin. So a lot of people bought that email when it's coming from the Washington Capitals.
Listen to 101 ESPN, where Alex will let you know if Alex Pietrangelo is re-signing with the Blues or if Alex Ovechkin is retiring.
No, these two,
coming up next, questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T1 on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line. In 10 minutes, we'll talk to Jason La Canfora, previously an NFL insider with CBS Sports, now does radio up in Baltimore. Huge Orioles fan. Alex, he's going crazy over what's taken place with Baltimore. I wanted to get his thoughts twofold. One, just to hear him rant about how horrible it is to be a Baltimore Orioles fan right now. But two, to talk about what the pitfalls are of not investing when you do have a real opportunity to be able to do something. So we'll talk to La Canfora about that and the lack of pitching that the Orioles have here in just about 10 minutes or so. But right now it's time for questions and answers. From the 314, guys, what are your thoughts about the handshake situation with the coaches and the Florida-Carolina ending? Did you see this last night, Alex?
I saw it, and I was trying to
Did you see the explanation from Paul Maurice?
I didn't see the explanation. I saw that he talked to Brindamore ahead of time and said, leave it to the players.
Yeah, so Paul Maurice said afterwards, basically, hey, for anybody that didn't see it, Paul Maurice, Rob Brindamore had what appeared to be kind of a stern talking to with one another after the game. They were not a part of the handshake lines that the players are a part of. So most of the time you'll see the coaches go through that as well. Apparently, Maurice told Brindamore, hey, that's for the players. We'll go shake hands on our own. I guess I'm fine with it. I don't really care. I do think it's kind of hoity-toity to be like, hey, that's for the players. No, man,
yeah, I think
the coaches have been doing this for years.
Yeah, I think you're making too much of it because it's not just the coaches need to shake hands. The coaches shake hands with the players.
Exactly.
There are so many times you hear coaches talk to players about how great you were in this series, appreciate you. Like the Winnipeg-Dallas series, for example. Like Pete DeBoer had a really good conversation with Scheifele, whose dad passed away before that series. So, yeah, I don't know. I think you're trying to make it bigger or maybe trying to lessen the amount of focus on it. I've always liked the handshake line. I love that they do that after they beat the crap out of each other for 7 games. I don't understand why coaches would take themselves out of it. It's for the coaches just as much as for the players.
I think it's silly. I like Paul Maurice. I like him a lot. I think this was a whiff. I think Brindamore had a little bit of a. I think he had a case to be made here.
Panthers were a little weird with it. Yes, I understand what they were doing. They didn't celebrate afterwards. They kind of did the whole, we've been here before, act like it, and didn't touch the trophy. I don't know, man. Part of me feels like you're trying to do this too business as usual. I like the emotions that come with when you're making the freaking Stanley Cup final right now.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate when teams lose the joy in that part of the winning.
Yeah.
Each round, I think, should be celebrated. But, hey, man, if they think it all comes down to whether or not they win the cup, I get that as well.
Well, I also don't think I disagree on every round should be celebrated. I hate when teams celebrate when they get out of the divisional round or something like that.
Yeah, pop the champagne.
Yeah, like in baseball when you pop the champagne on a wild card game.
I think it's great. From the 636, guys, what would you say if the Cardinals ended up reaching the World Series? What would your reaction be?
What the?
Yeah, holy bleep. How did this happen?
Best story in St. Louis since 2019. Mo will be a clear-cut Red Jacket member, and he will be remembered fondly because of this season.
I don't know if he'll be remembered fondly still.
I think he will set the team up. If they get to the World Series this year, it speaks to the talent that they've been able to assemble, and they'll be set up, you would think, at least for the next 3 to 5 years. And if it gets screwed up, it will be the next guy that gets blamed for that, not Mo.
I don't know. I would hope that's the case. I'm not even disagreeing with that because I kind of think the same way as you there. There's something about Mo people don't like, and that's where I'm skeptical to where they will give Chaim Bloom almost a 3 to 5 year grace period before they finally start blaming him if it goes south.
Can I ask a follow-up on this real quick before we get to Jason La Canfora on the other side? If the Cardinals win the World Series in 2026 without a whole lot of additions, it's primarily the core that they have right now, and they had a couple of additions because every team had some players. Will it be viewed as Chaim won with Mo's players, the way that the 2011 World Series, among many, is viewed as Mo won with Walt Jocketty's players?
Well, that's a really good question because people don't like Mo, so I don't think they'll give him the credit. But it should be.
So he gets screwed on the back end and the front end.
Yeah, it should be Chaim. It should be Chaim Bloom won with Mo's players. But Cardinals fans will go to see Chaim Bloom won when he took over from Mo.
Yeah, I think more people will give Heim. Oh, did you see the fourth starter Heim sign that helped us win the World Series? Yeah, are we just going to ignore that Mo drafted that whole team? I think fans would lean towards Heim probably.
Okay, yeah.
Because
I think they'd give Mo credit. I
don't
maybe
know.
I'm wrong on this.
I don't think they will, man. People do not like Mo, for better or for worse. People do not like him.
Do you think it would basically be, hey, they needed Chaim Bloom to come into the organization, see what was wrong with the minor league system for a year, and then they made the necessary changes. Chaim brought in his people. That allowed for the team to be successful in 2024 or 2025. And then when he took over, look at the step that they took in 2026.
Yeah.
That would be the case? Okay.
Yeah, you just nailed it.
Okay.
I want you to know, Mo, I would give you credit.
Heim and Rob Cerfolio fixed the minor leagues, which is why the younger players had success this year, which is why the team is in a World Series.
And they won't give Ollie credit for winning the World Series.
No.
They'll go, Brant Brown's the reason we won it all.
Brant Brown and
I
Dusty
feel
Blake.
bad for Ollie.
And Daniel Descalzo and John Jay. The coaching staff, not named the manager, will get credit.
He's Alex Lestibone on BK. In 15 minutes, we got to talk about the Islanders. They're a team that Alex thinks the Blues should target for a trade this offseason. Coming up next, Jason La Canfora joins us to talk about the pitfalls of not going for it when you have your chance. It's next here on 101 ESPN. Jason La Canfora is a part of Inside Access with Jason La Canfora on The Fan up in Baltimore. He joins us now via the Callier and Thompson hotline. Alex, the other day he tweeted out, maybe this garbage is okay in A-ball or wherever this manager came from. This organization is so many rungs below Bush League. It's scary. Make him pretend to manage the team, or if he's too busy bastardizing the left field wall again. Total bleep show. Jackass front office. Fire them all.
Hell yeah!
Jason, it seems like things are not going particularly well in Baltimore for the Orioles. We wanted to have you on because the Cardinals are going through some kind of a retool, rebuild, maybe contention. We're not exactly sure what this is right now. And the Orioles went through something worse than this recently. What's going on with your Orioles?
Well, the former owner hired some guys who can build Dominican academies, and they can build a scouting infrastructure. I don't know that they're so good at actually scouting, but they can build your innards, and they can hire kids from MIT, and Stanford to staff your analytics departments. And if you give them enough top 5 picks, they'll hit on some of them. But outside of that, they're completely over their skis. They don't understand anything involving the human element of this game. They don't understand how to handle promotions and demotions with these kids. They don't understand how to message short-term and long-term player development goals to their kids. They don't know how to message anything to the public. They are a farce from a PR and marketing and baseball operations standpoint. Their rebuild has taken a drastic turn for the worse, and it started just about a year ago, and people finally have started getting onto it this year. But this team's been in a deep slide and a deep malaise since late June of last year, and they don't have the right people staffing their front office to understand how to do anything different than just keep going where our calculators and our algorithms tell us. There's no pushback. They gutted the organization of the old school sort of, bird dogs and keep eyes on people. And that's how you end up with Adley Rutschman and not, Bobby Witt Jr. And that's where this whole thing started.
Jason, you kind of explained it there, but to dive a little deeper, I mean, how did this take this turn? Because last year it felt like the Orioles were not only going to compete to go deep into the playoffs, but looked like they were opening up like a 10-year competitive window.
Well, they've signed no one. They traded high on no one, like Cedric Mullins and Ryan Mountcastle and Austin Hayes, who they inherited from the old regime. They traded Austin Hayes for the carcass of some Anthony Dominguez. Cedric Mullins had a 30-30 season. Cedric Mullins is a top 20 hitter in baseball in that home ballpark against right-handed pitching over the last calendar year, but they're going to end up selling lower on him than they should have. They let everybody play 3 different positions in the minors, and then they get up here and they can't play any of those positions with particular acumen. They drafted nothing but shortstops for 2 drafts, and the one kid who's a plus defensive shortstop, Joey Ortiz, is on the bench in Milwaukee. Gunnar Henderson's a third baseman, not a shortstop, but they'll never admit or concede that now. Adley Rutschman's catching metrics, take the hitting out of it where he's an abject failure. He can't even catch. He's not even a top 20 catcher in any metric you want to frame it at. They failed these kids from player development. They were supposed to have an elite hitting incubator where if all else fails, we'll get on base. They're a below average OPS on base percentage team the last 3 years. They were below average on base team when they were hitting all those home runs. And some of the guys who were hitting all those home runs, like Tony Santander, who at 44 is a switch hitter last year and was born to hit in this ballpark, they let him go for less money than they paid Tyler O'Neill. They are farcical. The guy they have as the interim manager, I wouldn't let him coach my son's 13 and under team. It's a joke, the kind of rhetoric and nonsense that they're spewing out of that warehouse through the general manager, who waited 4 days to talk after he fired the former award-winning manager, or from what we have to listen to with Tony Manzolino every night. They were never as good as the hype about this thing in the first place, and they never took their young players and surrounded them by veterans who actually know how to get through a 162-game season and know how to grind at bats and know how to hit with runners in scoring position and runners on base. And so even more pressure is on these young kids who weren't producing in the clutch last year, and the whole thing is folded like the house of cards that it is. It's a bad Ponzi scheme, and until they get a real general manager, they'll be lost in the abyss.
Jason La Canfora joining us here on 101 ESPN. Jason, everything you're saying, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, T-Bone and Alex. This feels like the Cardinals of the last 2 years.
Jason sounds like what I sounded like last year.
Dude, it's all of the same things that we have been talking about, where it's like, hey, man, why don't you guys have the things in place to help these young players? Why are guys going up and down, and they have these crazy numbers during the minor leagues, and they get up to the big league level, and it's like, what? He's not good. Like, what has happened? I wanted to ask you about Adley Rutschman, Jason, because man, does that not feel like a Cardinal. Great first couple of seasons, and then has just fallen off of the face of the earth. What happened there? Why can't he hit anymore?
Well, I think a lot of it is mental. And I think, thank you, sir. I think he, thanks, guys. I think he bore the weight of this rebuild on his shoulders. And he came out smoking, and the league made some adjustments. And again, they didn't surround him with better hitters. They surrounded him with younger, lesser hitters. And I think the pressure got to him, and I think it's actually cratered him. And his approach is flawed. And they have a bunch of hitting coaches here, like all five of them combined, seem to know what they're doing. So I don't think he has the infrastructure he needs. They refuse to bat him below fourth, so they keep putting him in position to fail every night, batting him second, third, or fourth, when he knows he's just going to pop up or roll over or strike out with people on base. That's been his reality again for over a calendar year. I mean, the last time I checked, of all qualified hitters since June 20th of last year, and there were 300 of them, he was 277th in OPS, but they keep batting him second, third, or fourth every night. He needs to go back to Norfolk, and he needs to learn how to catch again. If nothing else, this guy at least has to be a plus receiver. He has to be able to throw people out at second base. Third, they take third on him all the time. But, can he throw somebody out at second occasionally? He has to get back to his footwork and blocking and framing. The success went to his head, and he was surrounded by a lot of other young kids who looked up to him and idolized him. The PR staff treated him like he was Cal Ripken in his prime. And Cal actually was, he signed autographs after games and stuff. And this guy was nowhere to be found in the second half while he was an abject failure, and the season was collapsing, and they're saying he's our 1-1 leader in face of the franchise, and he goes weeks on end without popping his head into the clubhouse and saying anything about their season on the brink. So they've been over-enabled. They've been over-hyped. They've been over-coddled. They've needed a bad cop in that clubhouse and in that front office forever. And they thought Brandon Hyde was even too tough on them. And I got news for you. Brandon Hyde's a total pushover.
So, Jason, we have this, and I think I know the answer to this before I even ask it, but we have these conversations all the time about how the Cardinals have talked about, draft and develop. That's how we get back to being a consistent World Series contender. And I think we're seeing it. The Baltimore Orioles draft and developed, but weren't willing to spend money. Can teams win in baseball unless they're willing to dole out a lot of the salaries that need to go to those stars on free agency?
No. I mean, if we're talking about getting into wild cards and occasionally winning a wild card series, maybe the Rays can do that. But beating elite payroll teams in a AL or NLCS and then doing it again in a World Series, no, I don't think they can. I also don't buy that this model is horribly flawed. I mean, we got a billionaire here who spent $23 million on a Magna Carta, never signed anybody to a real long-term deal. He's barely on the team for a year, and he's in Davos, Switzerland with the 50 richest people in the world bitching about a non-existent salary cap. You tell me he doesn't have real money to spend? I think Michael Elias convinced him not to spend. And I think the problem with baseball is a toxic culture with number crunchers who don't have any feel for the game, wanting to keep their job security above all else. And how do they do that? Look how many wins we got per dollar spent, boss. No, you don't have to come in here enthusiastic about press conferences and selling season tickets off of our off season. No. Let me show you how much smarter we are than everybody else. And even if it doesn't work out, hell, there's always next year. We've always got a long-term plan, and you didn't spend nearly as much per loss as the Yankees.
Jason, I do want to ask you, because I've got to imagine you've been enjoying this. How is the Tyler O'Neill Dylan?
I haven't gotten that vibe today.
How's the Tyler O'Neill Dylan Carlson experience treating you so far?
Oh, Tyler O'Neill is a broken baseball player, and if they had real scouts who watched him in the second half of last year, they'd know that. But if you just want to look at his career numbers against lefties and convince yourself that he's going to do for you what Santander did, I mean, you can do that. And if you surround yourself with suck-ups and sycophants, they'll say, yeah, boss, you're so smart. But he can't move laterally. He can't move in or out. I mean, we played clips of him in spring training, and people thought I was joking about it. And he's talking to some of his buddies in the Boston media, And they're like, man, you look more yoked than ever. And they're like, yeah, they let me they let me use any dumbbells I want here. Like, the Red Sox cut me off at a certain point because they didn't want me too jacked up. Like, they let me do whatever I want. Like, 2 days later, he's hurt for the first time. It's like, yeah, because he can't move. He's got no malleability, and you're going to try to pretend he's an outfielder. And I dared him to play him in the outfield, and they did for 2 series, and he got hurt. And they came back, and they put him in the outfield, and he got hurt again. He doesn't know when to slide. He doesn't know what base to throw to or when to hit the cutoff man. Like, he's a fundamentally abject failure baseball player. Oh, and go look what he's doing against lefties with these mooks. He's a failure. And they got him for multiple years. It's funny, we had Jim Bowden on our show as soon as that deal was done. I'm like, this is how bad did they skull bleep this one? He's like, you better play this guy opts out. They're going to be stuck with this guy for 3 years. Like, of all the people to give that option to, have they not seen this guy try to play baseball lately? It's a joke. But they're smart. They're geniuses. They're great. They went to Ivy League schools, and they're really, really rich. And, yeah, they're great.
On the plus side, you got Zach Eflin and Charlie Morton. So, the pitching staff is fixed.
Yeah. Well, but the real problem is that, look, this guy's been here 7 years. He acts like he just got here. You find me the major league pitcher he's drafted and developed. Find him, because he doesn't exist. I mean, he can claim Kyle Bradish, who they got from the Angels. He already pitched a couple years there. And, I'll give him credit for Bradish, but then they waited. Bradish should have had his Tommy John surgery last January when his arm was first hurt. They let him pitch into June, shut him down, and now by the time he comes back this year, you're going to have blown 2 seasons. So they couldn't even get that right. They don't want to draft any pitchers because they always get hurt. They don't want to spend for pitchers, and they don't know how to turn other people's trash into their success stories. So, go look at Grayson Rodriguez's minor league innings pitched totals. You'll throw up all over yourself. You'll throw I watched the kid almost every start. They'd pull him out in the 5th inning, and whether he was on 55 pitches or 60, they never let him go more than 75 pitches. They never let him pitch into the 7th inning. He's still never thrown more than 125 innings. And they had the audacity to let Corbin Burns walk when they knew he was walking, and they gave him a fake offer to pretend they tried to keep him, and then had the audacity to say Grayson Rodriguez is going to be our ace. And then Grayson Rodriguez is throwing 89 in a bullpen in Fort Myers, Florida. The skipper's literally not at the game. The GM's asleep at the wheel. They let him go into that game. I'm like, he's not going to pitch this year. He hasn't pitched since. I mean, it's fraudulent.
Jason, we'll get you out of here on this. Obviously, this has gone poorly. Things are not going well for the Orioles, and we can feel that. Is there any hope? Like, when you talk to people in Baltimore, is there anything that people are like, hey, but this could change and that? Okay.
No, nothing's going to change until this owner wakes up and fires the GM and fires his underlings and gets someone in here who's actually had success at a major league level, who's a leader of people, who knows how to build a collective vision, not be a zealot and a slave to their own preconceived notions. Someone who has a pulse for the ebbs and flows of the season and understands when it's time to attack. Someone who has a required sense of urgency. Someone who has a pulse. Someone who has people skills. Someone who knows how to deal with the media. Someone knows how to make real trades and knows how to make real free agent transactions. Someone knows how to recruit people here. Someone who would get on the plane with the billionaire and fly to Arizona and go to Corbin Burns' wife's favorite restaurant in Scottsdale and bring a meal to their house and say, we really want to keep you, and here's our holistic plan to do it. Not give an offer that you know is $50 million short that you keep in your back pocket that you can trump up after Corbin Burns laughs in your face 2 weeks after Santander laughed in your face about the fake offers you gave him in free agency.
Jason, this has been wonderful. I've genuinely enjoyed every second of it. I hope that this has been a little bit cathartic for you, going through what you guys are right now in Baltimore. I have to imagine the shows are just basically this for 4 hours a day. So appreciate it. Yeah. Our text line is absolutely loving it. They say we need to have you on as a weekly guest. Hopefully we'll talk with you again soon, man.
I don't think you people care about the Orioles that much. But can you get Jordan Walker going? I'm sitting on a whole bunch of his 2020 Bowmans that I can't give away right now. So let's go. I got numbered Bowmans. We got 2 kids in college now. Can we get Jordan Walker going?
There's hope. The last 10 games have been better. Only 1 walk in that stretch. Still a lot of strikeouts. So we're doing what we can over here, all right?
Yeah. Don't send him here. We can't fix him.
Appreciate you, Jason. That's Jason Canfora. Appreciate his time here on BK and Ferrario.
It's the most fun I've had in a radio interview in a long time.
Does radio out in Baltimore. I'm familiar with his work. He used to do stuff for CBS Sports, national NFL side of things. He was like one of the insider guys. As you can clearly see he's transitioned well.
Yeah.
He's taken to the whole East Coast radio thing. He's from Baltimore. That's his home base. So for him to be able to do radio there, he's
God bless
certainly
that guy.
taking to it. Our text line is a combination of I hate this guy and this is the greatest radio that I've ever heard. So
someone said I need his Venmo. You got to pay him for that one. That one was gold. He was a Cardinals fan for the last 3 years, just taking Cardinals and putting Orioles in it.
That was basically the last couple of years. We've had our take purges. That was Jason Lockenfora's take purge. But I think it might be just what they do on the show on a daily basis as well. Radio's a little different in Baltimore than it is.
I kind of like it. I love the aggressive nature of it.
They've got anger. I thought I had anger issues.
We have to be a little bit tempered.
Yeah, it's a little different. The audience asks for different things. I know people at our text line will say they want that every day. And maybe you do. God bless you if you do.
You can't be that angry every day.
It doesn't play here in this specific market, for better or for worse. There are moments where you can go ahead and go down that path, unfortunately. Or fortunately, depending on your perspective of it. That's not an everyday thing. But man, do I enjoy hearing that. And boy, did I not feel seen in some of the things that he was talking about. With what we have been discussing on the Cardinals, dude, oh, man. If there are fears with Chaim Bloom, by the way, it's that interview. I don't think it's going to go that way. I think we've already seen this year with the player development plan that is in place. I don't think the Cardinals are going to have those issues. But the things that Jason was talking about with Baltimore that have been problematic, the issues that they have, that was all of the issues that Boston people had with Chaim Bloom while he was there.
Good.
Again, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the problem here in St. Louis that it was in those two markets. They just operate differently, and frankly, they're in a different division where the bar to clear is so much higher than it is here in St. Louis with the National League Central. But if I'm going to have a cautionary tale of like, what is the potential pitfall here? It is that interview and the like wins per dollar, all of those sorts of things. I like my scale of 1 to 10 concern about that is like a 2 right now. Hopefully it stays that low, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. I'm not there yet, but I get it. Like I can understand people's concerns over it. I think people are so in a rut with what it's been with Mo that they're just welcoming in any new person that's taking charge. If it goes any in the direction that Lockenfora just laid out, give it about a year or two, and people will be done with Chaim Bloom.
Even because, like, I think Chaim, I said this at the time. We interviewed somebody from Boston. I don't remember who it was. To me, Chaim screams Mo 2.0, but just a little bit better on the kind of development side of things. And I don't know how that will play here in St. Louis.
Could go either way.
And the ownership.
If they win like this, like you'll have fans that are buying in early on. Now, the thing is, they've got to take that next step.
Yeah.
Because Baltimore did some winning last year. They got to the playoffs. They did some winning. But then they collapsed in the playoffs. And now this year you're seeing, just an absolute bottom falling out. I think some of this is revealing deeper issues, clearly.
I was going to say, some of this is player issues, too. Hearing him talk about Adley Rutschman not showing his face when his play started to decline significantly.
That stuff, by the way, is why you need veterans around. I truly do believe in this. Like, I do think veterans are necessary. I think to the degree that the Cardinals have believed in that, I'm not so sure. But, like, you can't just go full youth movement. Otherwise, you do, I believe at least, develop some bad habits. You need guys to kind of show you the ropes and show you what it's like to be a big leaguer. And obviously that has not always been the case out in Baltimore. If you missed any of that conversation, personally recommend checking it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Full disclosure, I booked him independently of Alex and T-Bone, and I actually felt bad after doing so, but I saw that tweet and I was like, we have to do this.
You make decisions for this show yourself, not as a team.
I texted you guys. I said, hey, Jason Lockenfora Thursday at noon. This was after, I think, Tuesday night's game. Got no response back. I was like, I'm going to have to explain this one.
I didn't respond because I felt like Jason Lockenfora that entire interview once I found out you booked somebody without checking with us.
Coming up next, are the Islanders the team for the Blues to target this offseason? We'll talk about that here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you missed our conversation with Jason La Canfora, I highly recommend checking it out at the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. He was a lot of fun. He was very upset about what's taking place with the Baltimore Orioles. We were just talking about this a little bit off air. Baltimore basically had a 5-year stretch of tanking, then won 83 games, then won 100 and got swept out of the DS, then won 90, got swept out of the AL wildcard, and now they're the worst team in the division again. So you had 2 years as a payoff, quote unquote, for that tanking, and it amounted to exactly 0 postseason wins. So that also speaks to why people are so mad in Baltimore. All right, Alex, let's get to the NHL, because over on The Athletic, they put out their latest trade board earlier today. Chris Johnston was the one that did this. I think he's a fantastic NHL insider. He does really great work. And he added a new name on this list that I saw, and me and T-Bone had the exact same reaction. It's like, Jean-Gabriel Pageau. That's an interesting name that I honestly have not seen anywhere else. He's on a $5 million deal through 2026. He's got a modified no-trade clause for half of the league. And he basically says, hey, listen, nobody really knows exactly what the Islanders are going to do this offseason, but it's possible that going into the final year of his contract, JGP is somebody that could be available via trade.
All right, I'm out on this now because you gave him a nickname.
Is that a player that you're interested in, Alex? Because he's the captain, right, for the Islanders, so he's got the inherent...
No, is he? I don't think he's the captain. I think Anders Lee's the captain.
Okay, well, he's a letterman, maybe.
He is a letterman.
He's captain-esque.
Yeah, he is a letterman.
For the...
Yeah, Lee's the captain.
For the Islanders. Yeah, well, close enough.
Yeah, close enough.
40-point producer on a pretty consistent basis. This is like a 10 to 15 goal scorer. This is not John Tavares. This is not Brock Nelson. This is a true third-line center for your team. Is he somebody that you'd be interested in?
I don't know if he's the one that I'm interested in. Like, I would check in on it because it's an upgrade, and, I mean, frankly, it's a one-year deal of bringing somebody in who's really good on the penalty kill.
I think he was their captain.
I don't know, man. But you know what? Some of us have those faults every once in a while. He's good on the penalty kill. He's really good in the face-off dot, and like, he's a contributor for it. He's not a 200-foot offensive weapon, as Doug Armstrong labeled what they would be looking for this offseason. I think he's a complimentary piece. For $5 million, I don't know if that's the direction I'm going to go, plus what it would take to trade for him. But I will say I would be targeting the Islanders this offseason. Like, there's a couple of teams that have already made it pretty clear that they're the ones you should be calling about potential trades. Buffalo Sabres are one of them. I think the Seattle Kraken are one. I think the Boston Bruins are one. The New Jersey Devils essentially said we are going to be making sweeping changes with our team. I do think you have to put the Islanders into this conversation. Now, their new GM, Matthew Darsh, was just talking with the media a little bit ago, and he said, look, we think we'll be a playoff contender again real soon. They've got a first overall pick in this upcoming draft, so maybe they're not in the sell mode. But, like, I look at that roster, and I brought up last week Matt Barzal, who's 28 years old, who has at least been in the rumors of potentially, do they look to ship him out? They do have Bo Horvat, who's 30 years old, and they've got J.G. Pageau. There's 3 centermen that I don't know if they keep all of them, and if they're looking to make changes or get a little bit younger, do they at least answer and listen on potential changes of bringing in a centerman? Pageau would be lower on that list, but if he's available, depending on what the cost might be, I wouldn't hang up the phone right away.
I think I like this idea.
The way that they labeled it is like a 200-foot offensive weapon, I don't know if he falls into that category.
He's a 200-foot player, 200-foot offensive player. Right?
They said offensive weapon, I thought. I thought Armstrong labeled it as an offensive weapon.
I wouldn't be too caught up in that personally. I think it's just like hey, we're striving for this, and if we don't get it, you strive for the moon, you just might reach the stars kind of thing. I think the Blues could do a hell of a lot worse than this. Like, we've mentioned Sam Bennett, because it feels as though every player that we talk about has some kind of a string attached to it. Sam Bennett, well, yeah, I love the idea of him, and if I can get him at 7x7, at this point I would think that's a steal, given what some of the numbers are, but I think it's probably going to be closer to like 7x10. I'm good. I don't even love the years to begin with, and now you're telling me it's going to be $10 million a year, and there's a whole bunch of interpersonal stuff that you have to deal with, like him making $2 million more on a per-year basis than all of your other stars on your team, and now what does that mean for Holloway, who's probably going to have to get at least 11 a year if you're giving $10 million to somebody else? I'm good. I'm out on that. Okay, now you turn the page. Brock Nelson, very interesting. I think he's going to Minnesota. Like the more I see reporting about this, like it just seems like that is going to happen. And if he doesn't, cool, I'm interested. But he's getting up there in age. He's probably going to be $7 million a year. Do you really need a 3-year stopgap at $7 million per year? I don't know with Dvorsky. We'll see. Same thing is true for Tavares. Basically the exact same situation. If you want to go the route of like a Trent Frederick, we brought him up as a lower level player, right? Frederick's interesting. I like him, but he's got some serious issues on the faceoff dot. He has not always been considered a true centerman. He's a guy that's kind of kicked back and forth between center and wing. And he's been up and down in his career thus far. And it is also probably going to be a multi-year contract for him. So that's everybody comes with some kind of a string. I don't know what that is for Pajot.
I think the string is what you'd have to trade to acquire him. Like, you're going to have to give up something you don't want to give up because the Islanders aren't
forced. You think so?
Yeah, they would hold on to him until the trade deadline and see if they can compete. And if not, well, then they'll trade him at the deadline.
What are we talking about here?
Like, that at the deadline would get you, at minimum, a 3rd-round pick, maybe a 2nd-round pick and a prospect.
What do you think the Blues would have to give up this offseason?
The offseason? Probably a decent prospect.
I think I'd do that.
I don't think I would when I could sign Trent Frederick for probably fewer dollars.
But more years. And the years to me
but he's
are
younger,
maybe
man.
more important.
Yeah, but he's younger, and this is a guy that, like, he might be a 3rd-line centerman for you now, could be a 4th-line centerman for you 2 years from now. And if we're talking, like, he's not going to get paid $4 or $5 million. Like, maybe he gets 4, but I think you're probably talking about 3 or 3.5 because he was injured this season. And all of the concerns that you have are probably what other teams are looking at. But if I'm going to pay, and I know this is only 1 year, if I'm going to pay Pajot $5 million on top of having to trade something that I don't want to give up, and I don't know what that would be because I don't know what the Islanders are looking for, but it's pretty obvious they're not in sell mode because their GM thinks they could compete next year. Could be just GM talk. But if I could go into the free agent market and sign that guy to be my 3rd-line centerman for you next year, and I understand the concerns on the faceoff dot, but him in the faceoff is what Sundqvist was in the faceoff last year. But he produces more, and that's where I think it really comes down to. I just don't.
He was a 40% faceoff.
He was 43% or 45% last year in the faceoff dot.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I'm not trading something unless it's a significant upgrade, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like O'Reilly, to me, I'd be in. I'm in on that. JGP, I'm in on that. I think I'm becoming more and more content with this mid-tier stopgap option that comes in, helps you for a year. You can probably write in pin like 40 to 50 points from them as your 3rd-line center. And that also means, and I should mention this, Braden Cheney's your 2nd-line center in these scenarios, most likely. O'Reilly, you could go either way. I think he's probably a 3rd-line center for you at this point as well, given what you have on the 2nd line. I don't know that he has the ideal playing style for Holloway and Kyrou, but I think I'm okay with that. I don't know that this team has to get a 2nd-line center or this offseason is a failure. I don't actually think that. I think if this team ends up with a guy that you feel really good about as a 3rd-line center and it's for a short-term contract, I'm comfortable with that, and I think that could still make them a real contender going into this season. And then you see where you're at the deadline, and if you need to add more, go for it.
Yeah, I think if I'm going for a 3rd-line center, I think I'll look at the market because I could sign a free agent as long as I'm not going 4 or 5 years, which and that I just don't know about. I think I'm going to that market because I won't have to pay the assets to trade for one. If I'm going to make the trade, I'm going to go for a guy like McLeod from Buffalo or Shane Pinto from Ottawa. I'm going to go for the upside of, hey, this dude could become a 2nd-line center, but for now, he is a significant upgrade for you at the 3rd-line center, and you don't have to rush it.
Like, would you rather have Jack Roslovic at 3 years, $5 million per year, or trade for JGP?
Probably Roslovic.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't have to trade the asset to get him.
That's fair.
Yeah. And I think there's a little bit.
That's the market really that we're talking about here.
And I mean, if we're talking about some like low-level prospect that we're not going to be talking about in 3 years on the Blues, then I'm all aboard it. But I have to imagine that if the Islanders are viewing this with a new general manager of like, hey, maybe we could actually do some damage, they're going to be asking for something that makes them better now rather than makes them worse.
We did get this from Ian on the text line. If you get a 3rd-line center for a short-term investment, that means in a couple of seasons you're going to need a 2nd and a 3rd-line center. No, the hope is one of those guys is Dalibor Dvorsky. That should be the goal for this team.
Yep.
I'm not out on that. And the other one could be literally anybody. Like at that point in time, maybe you have somebody else that has emerged as a first-round pick from this year's draft, for example. Or it could be somebody that you sign via free agency or go out there and trade 3 years from now for somebody. I'm not planning my third-line center for 3 years from now today. That should not be the way that I'm planning. Those guys are, think about who the Blues have had as their third-line center of the last 5 years. It's constantly ever-changing, even for contenders for Stanley Cups. Their bottom and middle six, always changing. Those are where you have your flexibility. Top six should mostly be stable. Top four defensively, you mostly are stable. It's everybody else. Those are the fluid pieces. So that's why I am so hell-bent on this idea of not giving a 4 or 5 year deal to somebody that is probably not going to be your second-line center 2 years down the road, or even your third-line center potentially 2 years down the road.
Yeah, and I think some of this, too, comes down to do they lock up Foxa? Because if they don't lock up Foxa, then that might be the mindset of them, of signing somebody who's a third line for you now, but then a fourth line later, and Sundqvist can dip down. It's more so about, like, I'm in the same line of thinking as you. I'm not going more than 4 years for a centerman right now.
I don't think I'm going more than 3. I wouldn't want to.
I'd hear the 3 in the sense of how long of a deal are you giving Foxa? Sundqvist comes off. Maybe it's going to be there for you there. Like, I guess it depends on the player in terms of the 3.
Correct. Like Sam Bennett. Sure. Yeah. If you go get.
Well, that's not happening. So don't live in La La Land.
But if you can get a 7-year by $7 million, yeah, I'd be willing to go. So I'll never say never to this.
Yeah.
Shane Pinto, more than 3 years. Cool. Sounds great. It better be a dude that is top 6 for me long term.
Would you do Tavares if he wanted 3 by 5?
3 years, yeah.
Yeah, because see, that's kind of what my mindset was. Like Tavares or Nelson,
I'll guy 3, not 4 though.
Yeah, no, I'm not going past 4 exactly. But that would be, and that's the placeholder for me to where then I could slow play Dvorsky, play wing for a couple of years. Maybe that 3rd year of it, you could see him switch over to centerman, and the other guy moves to a wing. That's where I'm looking at more so to where if I get 3, it's going to be for who's a clear upgrade, who could even potentially move Shen down to the 3rd line.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up next, this is the best Cardinals middle infield since blank. If you answer the blank for us at 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll discuss that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals took down Baltimore Orioles yesterday 6-4 as they take 2 of 3 from Baltimore and are 8-1-1 in their last 10 series. They are off today as they travel to Texas, where tomorrow they'll start a 3-game set with the Texas Rangers. 7:05 will be first pitch tomorrow. Matthew Liberatore will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Swing, fly ball, hit well toward right, at the track, at the wall. That baby's gone.
Every night he's playing hard, hitting every single night it feels like. And, today was just another example of why he's the best second baseman in the game right now.
That is what it sounded like last night on FanDuel Sports Midwest. Winn Donovan putting together one hell of a season. He now is batting .335 on the year. He has an OPS of .875. He also has exactly 1 error defensively so far this year. And Alex, last night, if you're looking at it, 3+ hits in a game. He did it again yesterday. It was the 10th time this season that Winn Donovan had at least 3 hits in a game through the first 56 games of the season. The last Cardinal to do that, at least 10 3-hit games in the first 56 games of the season, was Ducky Joe Medwick back in 1937.
There we go, the 30s.
It had been 90 years since a player had this many 3-hit days this early on in the season. It's remarkable what he's doing. And then you look over to his right, and you've got Masyn Winn, who's putting up one hell of a season in his own right. His game from last night should not go overlooked. I mean, he was awesome offensively, and defensively he's been great all season long. But yesterday, it was another 4-for-5 performance, again, showcasing just how good he is in that 2-hole. An RBI, 3 runs scored for him. And so it brings to this question, Alex. This is the best Cardinals middle infield since blank. What would your answer to that question be?
Well, I have a real soft spot for the best infield ever, and it was Fernando Vina and Edgar Renteria. But if you look at the numbers for the season that Vina was great, Renteria wasn't great. The season that Renteria was great, Vina wasn't great. So if we're going off of the precedent of like these two guys are both impact players for the team, you got to go back to the 80s. You got to go. I wasn't alive in the 80s, but I've heard about it.
Well, that's when baseball was baseball.
You got to go back to Tom Herr and Ozzie Smith.
All about it.
Tom Herr was MVP consideration for a couple of those years, and Ozzie was just himself every single season. I mean, other than that, my argument would be Renteria with Vina, and then after that, it was just a whole lot of plug and play for a few years.
And the difference between this and the Vina situation, Vina was 31 when he got here. So you knew you were on borrowed time. We've got maybe 1, 2, 3 years of quality ball. Yeah. And he's a guy that comes in, wasn't homegrown. It's different, right? Winn Donovan is one of yours. He's a guy that is a Cardinal through and through. Same thing is true for Masyn Winn. You drafted and developed these guys, and now they're having success as players at the major league level at the positions that they were supposed to be a part of. So there's something to that. It's like a tiebreaker. It's not the end-all, be-all, but I do think that helps. And this is the first time that you've had a middle infield that you feel this good about, that has the potential, at least, depending on what you do contractually, but has the potential to be there for 5 years together since Ozzie and Tom Herr.
Yep.
You do really have to go back nearly 40 years. Those guys were together from 82 to 87 in the middle infield for the Cardinals together. And over that span, if you just want to get super nerdy with it, you just want to put one specific number on it, they were worth a combined 50 wins above replacement between the two of them over that 6-year stretch.
Yeah.
They were awesome.
I think the other year that you felt like you were potentially doing what we're seeing right now with Winn and Donovan was 2017 when it was Wong and DeYoung, because DeYoung was second in Rookie of the Year. Wong had already been kind of a mainstay. The offense wasn't there, but you knew the Gold Glove defense.
Yeah.
But that died off the next year.
And beyond that, I never felt this good defensively about DeYoung. Now, I know I was always the low man on DeYoung's defense. People
you hated him.
People told me all the time about how great he was defensively. I thought he was fine. Masyn Winn is not.
No.
I mean, they're not even in the same category. Yeah. And to be fair, I'm not sure Donovan is in the same category defensively as Colt Wong. Wong was special as a defender at second. Donovan is good. Like, he's good. He makes all the plays you would expect him to, but he's not what Colton Wong was defensively.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So that's a good one too, Alex.
Yeah,
I do like that.
And to your point, like, it lasted, like, I think it was the next year.
It was the next year that DeYoung dropped off.
You were like, oh, okay. So DeYoung was clearly a potential flash in the pan, and as it turned out, it was just a flash in the pan. And none of that seems to be the case with Mason Winn or Brendan Donovan. Like, Brendan Donovan's casually hitting like 330 and only getting better. And like the thing with him,
335 right now.
And the thing for me that's impressive outside the 385, because whoa, but is he's slugging too, right? He's now hitting for doubles. He's hitting for a little bit of power. And like I thought at this point of the season we would start to see that kind of taper off a little bit, and that hasn't happened. And then same with Mason Winn. Mason Winn's added a little bit more pop to his game. Now it's probably not Paul DeYoung power, 30 home runs, but he's got a little bit more slug in the bat than I was expecting from him. So yeah, I would agree with you guys. I think it is probably the best middle infield they've had since it was her and Smith. They've had a couple that lasted a couple of years, but to your point, this is one that it feels like it's going to last longer than just 2-3 years.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with both of them.
Why were you looking at me like that?
I don't know, man. It's just, I don't know.
Cardinals in the last 15 years with at least a 335 average or better at this point in the season.
And how many years?
Last 15 years. So dating 15. Back to 2010. This is like the very, very end of Pujols, because he's the answer like for everything, right?
True.
The last 15 years, 335 average or better at this point in the season. Goldie in 22 finished with a 317 average. Yachty in 2013 finished with a 319 average. And then John Jay actually did this back in 2010. He finished that season with a 276 average, so it did dip for him, but he was off to a really hot start. Brendan Donovan is the latest addition to that list. So it's 3 players, Jay, Yachty, Goldie. You can now add Brendan Donovan to that list. Are you guys comfortable talking extension with him?
Is that why you looked at me?
Yeah. I don't think it's something that the Cardinals will do in season. I would be surprised by it. I'd be cool with it, but I'd be surprised by it. Do you guys, are you comfortable now talking extension with Winn and or Donovan?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I think those two guys are your core faces moving forward. So, yeah, I would put Herrera in there. I know there's hesitancy, but I think that dude is a budding superstar. But yeah, if you want to talk contract extension with those guys, fine, because they're going to be here for the long term.
I still don't know if I would do Donovan, and I know that sounds weird, having a career year that he is. I don't know what it is. I don't think I would do Brendan Donovan. Winn I would probably do just because he plays the premier position as shortstop.
What's holding you back on Donovan?
I think with Donovan, for me, he's a little bit. I don't think it's all fake.
You've got 2 years left.
With Mason Winn, he's 24 years old. He's at a premier position, so he will. We've talked about this before. He will get paid if he hits the market, and especially if some of this pop that he's added in his slugging percentage is real, and he's 22% above league average. I just with Donovan, I don't know what it is for me. Maybe it's the age. Like, he'd be 29 going into next year, so he's a little bit older.
Would you give him the Jeff McNeil deal?
4
years, $50 million. And he avoided arbitration in 2 years, so it would be almost exactly the same. It's a little younger, but McNeil signed a 4-year, $50 million deal at the age of 31 to avoid 2 arbitration years, which was what you'd be doing with Donovan.
Yeah, I don't mind that deal. Like, if he would sign for that, I would probably give him that. For McNeil, though, like, it quickly, because he's now, like, at the back end
of that deal.
He's
also 33.
Yeah, it's quickly fallen off for
Donovan
him.
will be signing the deal 2 years earlier in his career.
Yeah, I don't know. I would probably do 4x50 if that's what he's wanting to do. That one I would do, but if you're doing any bit more than that, more years, more money, I would probably be out on that.
That's fair. I think that I would do that tomorrow, and then I would be more than happy to talk extension with Mason Winn today.
Why are you waiting until tomorrow with Donovan, but Winn today?
Well,
give it a day.
Press conference. Win the press conference.
Well, why not do them both and then just have the press conference?
I actually think that would be a great idea.
Here's our middle infield for the next 10 years.
Well, 5.
10. Lock them up long term.
Oh, I'm not doing 10 for Donovan.
I do 4 or 5 years for either of them.
You guys are cowards.
For Winn, I do 10. I do 10 years for me.
You guys are cowards.
Take him into his early 30s. Let's go. This is our guy. We're betting on him. We have not had a franchise caliber shortstop that we drafted and developed internally, or that we have acquired at a very young age since Ozzie Smith. This is the next guy we've got. He is yours. He's here to stay. Honestly, what I would probably do if I was ownership.
Have Ozzie at the presser?
No, don't do that. And don't put him in the powder blue jersey like you did with Bader, because that really dipped off from Bader.
I think you could actually make that work with him. He's a real franchise player as opposed to Bader, who they were trying to sell you as a franchise player.
Well, you were sold.
True.
10 by 100.
5 by 50.
10 by 100.
What I was going to say, I think they should probably wait to do all of this until Chaim Bloom is announced officially.
You don't think Mo should be giving out extensions right now?
Not that. I just think it's a really good look for your new president of baseball operations to be like, this is what we're trying to do. We are a draft and develop organization. And then when they develop, we will pay them to stay here in St. Louis. These are your homegrown stars. Here's the first example of that.
Doesn't Mo get screwed over, though, because of what we were talking about earlier? He was the guy that drafted and developed, and all Mo was called was the guy that can't draft and develop.
Correct. But if I'm the organization, publicity-wise, like PR relations-wise, I think that's probably the play.
I think they should both be there and shake hands together.
You do this in November. You announce them both. Hey, Chaim Bloom is taking over. His first move as president of baseball operations is to retain the talent that we have developed internally. I think that's probably...
Yeah, and you announce it on the stage
with
on
Mo's
Market
extension.
Street. After our parade of winning the damn thing.
Right, have them sign the contract while chugging a Bud Light.
Oh, that would be awesome.
No, Budweiser. Come on, man.
Bud Heavy. Bud Diesel. Junk Drawer coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, after our show every day, I talk to Jamie. I'm like, hey, would you do this deal? Mm-hmm. And normally he's like, no, that's the dumbest thing I've
yesterday
ever
you threw Eric Carlson at him.
Yeah, he basically immediately, like, before I could even get caught, he was like, no.
Yeah, anybody hears Eric and they're like, okay, well, this isn't going to go well.
He threw one my way today. I'm assuming they'll probably talk about it today on their show. And if they do, we'll react to that tomorrow because I like the name that he threw our way.
All right. Deep tease.
All right, what do we got for the junk drawer today, Alex?
So, guys, have you ever had one of those moments where you're at the store and you see a sale and you're like, this is too good to pass up, and so you go crazy with it?
Sure, yeah. We actually just bought Luca, like, Jungle Gym thing.
Oh, yeah.
It was on Amazon, so it's not, like, in the store.
Yeah.
We do all of our shopping on Amazon, let's be honest.
Makes sense.
And it was half off, so I was like, I got to get it. Do we need it? No, but I got to get it.
Have you ever done it where you buy it in bulk? Where you're like, I'm going to buy like 7 of these.
Yeah,
when we go to Costco, I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily like a sales price, but yeah.
I did this yesterday. So we were still in the baby formula stage with Olivia.
I thought you were talking about something else. I was like, you really want to bring this on air?
No, not at all. We're in the baby formula stage still. She's got like 2 more months to go. And so typically, like, I go to Costco to get it, and I buy it. It's like the double thing, and it's like $60, but it gets you through like 2 or 3 weeks. So I went there yesterday. They didn't have it, and so I went to Schnucks right next door to me, and I'm walking down the aisle with the formula, and typically they're about $45 to $55, and it's just one little big one. And I looked at it, and it had the tag next to it that said $14.99. I go, bleep off, no way. And so I like looked at it, same. Like it was the same ounces that you would get at Costco, and the price tag, it said normally $55, $14.99. I thought this was fake, so I took one of them up to the scanner and I scanned it, and it said $14.99. I ran back to the aisle. I bought all 5 of them.
Yeah,
nice.
I didn't.
I think that's brilliant. So you absolutely should do that.
So I'm the guy at the self checkout with 5 things of this baby formula powder. People are probably like, "How many kids do you have at home?"
And you said 12.
3 of them. Yeah, this is like the Brady Bunch, but only one of them's on formula. But I went back and I bought.
Yeah, now you're good.
I got home and I told Katie, I don't need to buy formula again until she's done with it, and we're done. I bought all of them. Like, I just put my arm behind it and I scooped them into the basket, and I said, we're leaving. It was incredible. And I was just thinking, it's like, have you ever done that where you see it and you're like, I'm buying as many of these as possible?
It's the greatest feeling when you can walk out of the store and you think to yourself, man, think of all the money that I saved today. And then I go spend it on something else that's totally frivolous and definitely something that won't get me into trouble with the wife at any point.
But it makes you happy.
Yeah, it does.
And doesn't your happiness mean something?
Probably. Yeah,
So
my wife says that all the time.
Your wife never tells you your happiness is important.
I only have to worry about my own happiness, and let me tell you, it's great.
Is that lonely?
No, it feels great.
Is the loneliest number that you...
I can do whatever I want.
Well, I can too, and I got a hell of a deal at Schnucks yesterday.
I'm just looking for a TV, man. That's
Dude,
it.
check out
your new TV.
Check out your Fat Kid Deals thing on Twitter. I bought one last year for like $300 off.
If anybody has a recommendation for, we're looking for a 65-incher downstairs in the basement. If you have any recommendations, because, dude, I've seen all of these ratings and, like, reviews, and one person will tell you one thing, another person will tell you another thing. I don't know what to do. I just need a good TV that'll work for me downstairs that I can watch sports on. So if you got a recommendation,
I'll sell you mine. I'll sell you mine.
I don't want yours.
Why?
I want a
Works
new one.
fine. It's basically new.
I want a new TV.
Sometimes you don't get what you want, Brandon.
I can do this, though. This is for me.
Well,
and then we're going to take a small one, put it underneath a cabinet, and then whenever Luca wants his, like, YouTube videos, we put it up there. I get the 65-inch TV. I'm going to be watching TV on a 22-incher soon. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Has Lars Nootbaar become the You Go, We Go player for the Cardinals? Some numbers on that might surprise you. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. All right, Alex, I've been reading this Redbird Rants site more often recently. We've got some good writers, and they had a piece the other day about Lars Nootbaar. And it was on him breaking out of his slump, and we had talked about this the other day, 1 for 19 going into that game 2 days ago, and then he's been good ever since. Well, they wrote the following, and this actually legitimately surprised me. I had not really thought about this beforehand. Quote, among Cardinals qualified hitters, Nootbaar has the best slugging percentage, best OPS, most RBI, most home runs, most walks, and most runs scored in games in which the Cardinals have won this year. So he basically is the best offensive player when the Cardinals win. When they lose, Nootbaar has the lowest average, the lowest slugging percentage, the lowest OPS, and the fewest RBIs of any of their qualified hitters as well. So they write the following. When Nootbaar's having a good day, the Cardinals generally have a good day. When Nootbaar is struggling at the plate, it feels as though the Cardinals have a very difficult time scoring runs as well, end quote. Alex, I, even anecdotally, had not given a second of thought to this. But once I read it, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Nootbaar is almost the bellwether for this team. He is, for them, the you go, we go guy. The old saying that the Cubs had for Dexter Fowler at the top of the order, that's Noot. He's the guy that gets the offense going. He is the engine for all that they are doing offensively right now. Now, he is not alone. He's doing this in tandem with Mason Winn and Winn Donovan and Ivan Herrera, and they're passing the baton down the line. But it all starts with him. How do you view the importance of Lars Nootbaar right now to this lineup, Alex?
I think he's right up there with Brendan Donovan, because I think Brendan Donovan is the other one. And last year we said that Brendan Donovan was the you go, we go type of player. And at the time he was in your leadoff position. And when he wasn't there, it was pretty significant in terms of what it looks like. But I mean, just go back and look at the Cardinals' struggles in the past years when Lars Nootbaar has been out. Like last year in the month of June, I think that's when they went through their down spiral of losing games that they shouldn't be losing and the offense wasn't contributing. And he was out that entire month. He missed from June 1st all the way to July 8th.
Interesting.
So I do think, you know what, Lars Nootbaar is kind of like what Jaden Schwartz was, to where it's like when you pluck him out of the lineup, everything else around you starts to look like, okay, well, why doesn't this look like the way it has? We've seen the team have success already this season without Ivan Herrera. We've seen them have success without Mason Winn. I do feel like Lars Nootbaar is one of those guys. I would put Nootbaar and Donovan and probably Mason Winn as guys that if you lose them, the team is going to take a turn for the opposite direction.
He's on pace for 35 doubles, 25 home runs, 80 RBI this year. And you just look at it and you're like, oh, that's a really good season.
Well, there you go, Lars.
I mean, you put that together. I mean, 15 stolen bases is his pace right now as well. I mean, that's
He's
just
on
a
pace
really...
for 15. So,
He's got 4 right now. We're a third of the way through the season, so 12 to 15. It's just, man, nothing about his slash line really stands out as being like, oh, man, Lars Nootbaar, what a year. 250 average, 350 on base, 415 slug. He's basically what he's been, but he's staying healthy, and so the overall like volume statistics, and he's batting leadoff, so he's just getting more opportunities. The volume statistics are greater than they have been in recent seasons. I think sometimes people just, and I'll put myself into this category, we underestimate the amount of impact that he has on a game. Because he gets on base so often. He hits for a little bit of power. He is a really good defender in left field. He runs the bases well, even when it's not stolen bases. He's just like first, third on a single. Like, yeah, you expect that out of Lars Nootbaar. He just does everything pretty well. And those are guys that are easy to sometimes lose sight of. But when you don't have them on the roster, you replace them with somebody who has pieces of what he brings to the table. Like you could put Alec Burleson into left field, but you're losing the defense, you're losing the base running, you're losing the on base. You could put Brendan Donovan in left field, sure, and that's like the 1-for-1 replacement, but now you've got Nolan Gorman in the lineup probably at second base, and Gorman doesn't bring the on base, he doesn't bring the contact, he doesn't bring the defense, like a lot of the stuff that Nootbaar brings to the table. He does everything pretty well. Yeah. That's why he's going to get paid eventually in free agency.
Yeah, I view it as it's in not just Nootbaar, but I think it's Nootbaar and Donovan. I think it's those two because like everything you just said about Nootbaar, I think applies to Donovan. Sure. Right? He's not. I wouldn't say he's he's apparently great at hitting for average, but I wouldn't say he's like great at any specific thing outside of his batter's eye, and I would say that's the same for Nootbaar. But they do everything well. He's good at going first to third. He is good at playing defense at second base. He is good when he moves to the outfield to play defensively. Like those two guys, when you watch them take at bats early on in a game because they are 1 and 3, and I think Winn's starting to move into this, but. They are the ones that kind of set the tone, right? Nootbaar leads off the game yesterday with a single on the first pitch. He also could lead off the game by watching 8 pitches go by, and maybe he doesn't get on base, but he just made the pitcher burn through 8 pitches in the first at-bat of the game, and then Brendan Donovan's going to do the same thing. So, and if you take out Donovan as well, you lose a lot of the same aspects of if you did it with Nootbaar as well. So I think Nootbaar and Donovan are the guys that are hey, if we are going, you guys will be going as well.
Some of the YouTube chat, Dr. Xander says if they extended Newt and Donovan, they might not have to sign a position player for like 5 years. How do you guys view Newt as a part of the core?
Not in the same...
Because he's the one that is more immediate in terms of the need of a contract extension, if you were going to go down that path.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a lot of like depth that's coming up soon for your outfield. But I also don't know if I put him in the same conversation as Brendan Donovan and Mason Winn, because I haven't seen it consistent. Like, this is the first year where he's been healthy, and hopefully it stays that way, but I haven't seen it from start to finish with him.
Do you guys agree or disagree with the statement that I'm about to make? Lars Nootbaar's future in St. Louis is dependent upon Jordan Walker's future in St. Louis. Because if Walker becomes the player you want him to be, he's in right field, and he's going to be here for hopefully the next decade. If he doesn't, well, then that means there's a need in right field. And it's possible Newt is actually that guy. And then you kick Donovan out to left field. He becomes the left fielder with Nootbaar in right, or flip them, however you want to do it. And then you've got either Gorman or JC or Weatherholt at second base for you. Like, those guys are all kind of right now almost competing, so to speak, for those 3 spots. And I think if Walker becomes the dude that you're hoping he becomes, you probably still kick Donovan eventually out to the outfield, most likely. And that means he's taking Nootbaar's spot if you're keeping Donovan here long term. But if Walker doesn't become that guy, that's how Nootbaar becomes a core member of your team. But I don't think there's any chance they re-sign him before like 2027.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you're still a couple of years away from that. And yeah, I think you're probably right. Like, only one of those guys are going to be here long term. Because I was trying to think, like, does Burleson play into this at all? But I don't think they believe Burleson's an outfielder. You've got so many infielders right now that it does feel like Donovan's future is going to be in one of those corner outfield spots. And then it's just a matter of who do you decide to keep.
Maybe it's second. Maybe Weatherholt's future is at third and Sajayce's future is in a different organization. That's possible. You know, you have to keep these things open, but Donovan at second or left, or just a super utility guy that you go into every season, you're like, hey, we'll figure out what to do as we get closer to opening day with him. Any of that would work, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I agree that it's tied to Walker. I think it's mostly just tied on if Nootbaar stays healthy for 2 full seasons. Because I think you can get away with paying Nootbaar, having Walker be a part of the core, while also having like a Donovan here as well on top of Weatherholt. Like, some of these contract extensions that we are talking about wouldn't be too expensive. Like, we talked about the Donovan one. It's not like that one's going to break the bank on you.
It's just roster spots and playing time.
Yeah,
really more than anything.
but I think, like, there's not a whole lot coming outside past J.J. Weatherholt, at least in my opinion. Like, maybe Chase Davis is there, got a couple of catchers. But, like, if you're saying, well, you've got too many roster spots, well, then I would trade from that surplus of the minor leaguers and keep the guys that I have that are known commodities at the big league level.
Don't do what...
And you probably supplement your pitching.
Don't do what the Cardinals did in the past, where they tried to keep everything in-house because they didn't want to give anything away. Like, you're going to have to trade from your plethora of something at some point.
Brandon Nimmo ended up signing a 8-year deal worth $162 million. We're starting to get on that trajectory for Lars Nootbaar.
I don't know if I would do that with Lars Nootbaar. With the injury past, and you're talking about giving him that when he's 28, 29... I'm not doing that with Lars Nootbaar.
I'm not sure he'll get to that full degree. That included the Mets as one of the bidders. Nimmo had also put together a couple of really excellent seasons back-to-back. I don't think Newt has quite reached the same ceiling that Nimmo did as a hitter. I think Newt maybe he's a little better defensively, but as a hitter, I don't think he's quite to the same degree. So you might be looking more at like a 6-year, $120 contract for him, something in that range. And that's something that maybe I'd be a little more open to. But again, it goes back to, like, I'm not doing any of that yet.
Yeah.
I don't think where I'm comfortable doing these kinds of things with Mason Winn and Brendan Donovan, I'm not there yet with Lars Nootbaar. I need to see the full season. And then, honestly, I kind of need to get more answers on the rest of my roster next year as well. And then we can talk a little bit about what his contract situation is going to be. At least that would be my perspective if I was in Chaim Bloom or John Mosey-Luck's shoes. 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line. Believe it or not is next.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
free, flying away on a wing and a prayer.
Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it or not here on 101 ESPN. Didn't appreciate that, first of all.
Why not, babe?
Joke didn't go under the radar.
What? You're flying like a bird. That was the first bird that I could think of.
Do you think the Cardinals listened to Believe It or Not, and that's where they got their wing flap from?
Oh, from you? No.
You don't think so?
Yeah, no. I'm definitely not giving you that credit.
I thought maybe
in
that
fact,
was.
if we walked around the clubhouse and started showing them, they'd probably go, "We got to come up with something."
Mine kind of looks similar.
You gotta get rid of this bird.
Arenado actually got into it the other day. Because normally he's just a little one of these guys.
He's a little Tweety bird.
But lately,
well, when you run out of triple, I would too.
I like Mason Winn's better. He avoids the bird and just does the pump.
Yeah,
they should do the other bird.
The other bird? What, you want him to do the flamingo?
Middle finger, man.
Oh.
Stone Cold Steve Austin one.
T-Bone.
Hey, this is our
Don't
fourth
act like
hour
the bird
of
is from
radio.
the 90s.
I am not in 4-hour radio
I
shape.
gotta say, this is very different.
This is a lot.
Most of my career has been spent doing 4 hours of radio up until, I guess, the last 2 years now. Like, since I stopped doing the Danny Mac show.
Dude, our show's never been 4 hours.
No, since I stopped doing the Danny Mac show, it's been 3 hours. But prior to that, it was all 4 hours dating back to, 2016.
I like my 3 hours when I, don't have to do blues afterwards, because typically I do about 8 hours of radio during the day. So the 3 hour ones are nice.
This hits a little different.
Yeah, it does.
Doesn't it?
It does.
This extra hour, it really feels like you're in the home stretch.
I'll tell you where it hit when I woke up this morning, because typically I'm up at 6:30.
Dude, you ain't lying.
I rolled over, or I didn't roll over. I was up at 6:30, but then you're sitting there drinking coffee and reading everything, and it's like, shoot, it's 8 o'clock. I gotta leave.
Luca was not up at 8, and I was like, Kara, I've got to go. We're taking him out to O'Fallon today. We've got a different setup with a babysitter for the next couple of days. And I was like, if I don't get going now, I am not going to make it in on time for the show. And normally, I could leave 9:15, 9:20, 9:30 maybe. And today it was 8:15 I had to be out of the house. It was, oh boy.
Not fun.
All right, so time for Believe It or Not.
But I love this.
399-9646 is the Air
Love
Comfort
chipping
Service
in where
text
I need
line.
to.
Shout out to TMA. They're doing something really cool over the next couple of days. They've got the Dotem. A portion of the proceeds benefit the St. Louis Hero Network in honor of Brian McKenna. So a really cool thing they're doing.
And the
Happy to step up in their absence.
Rain is staying off until later this afternoon, so they're going to get their 18 in today. Good stuff for a golf tournament.
I'll be curious to hear how Jackson did today.
What do you mean?
I just want to know an update.
You mean anger, or how he golfed?
Just on the course. I like Jackson.
You think Jackson's not a good golfer?
I think he is a good golfer. That's why I'm curious how he does on the links today.
Let's see what the text line has today on Believe It or Not.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. Somebody from the 636 said, wait, you guys were in at 10 a.m. today? Sure were. If you want to check out the podcast, you can do so after the show today. 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company. I was listening.
We will be in again tomorrow at 10 a.m. as well. The text line says, Alex, it's raining.
What?
Guys, believe it or not,
What?
the Blues will trade a player this offseason under the age of 22 on their current roster, not trade for, but trade from their current roster or in their system, a player under the age of 22.
I'll believe this one, because I think they could trade somebody in their prospect pool. They have a ton of wingers right now that I just don't know where they're going to fit in. So I'll believe this one. I just don't know what's going with that player.
I'll believe it as well, because I'm starting to believe they're acquiring their center on the trade market, and I can see where somebody in their system that's young ends up being part of that package that goes. Who that is, I don't know, but I will believe this.
I'm going to believe it as well. I am starting to lean toward trades are going to be the destination for the Blues. I think it just makes more sense for them. Yep. Believe it or not, from the 618, guys, John Tavares, Brock Nelson, or Aaron Ekblad, one of those three will be signed this offseason by the Blues.
I'll say not believe it. As much as I'd like them to sign one of those two centermen, I think Brock Nelson's going to be in Minnesota, especially if they're trading away Marco Rossi. I think John Tavares is, if he doesn't sign in Toronto, he's going to sign some team up in Canada. Watch out for the Edmonton Oilers. I could see that one happening. And then
the Rangers. I wonder if New York
could see the Rangers
spot for him.
And I don't think the Blues are going to.
Florida. Bennett Leafs.
Yeah, I didn't even think. Oh, jeez. That's going to suck.
It just hit you.
It just hit me. It's like, oh, you got to be bleeping kidding me. And I think Blues aren't going to pay Aaron Ekblad money for a right-handed defenseman.
Yeah, I'm not going to believe this either. I just said I think they're going to the trade route this offseason, so I don't think they're in on those guys. I would love Tavares as the center, but I just don't know if he wants to come here.
Yeah, I think you can entice him if you're willing to go 3 years, $6 million, but I don't know if the Blues are going to be willing to do that.
Rank your interest level in those three players.
Tavares, Nelson, Ekblad.
That would be Tavares 1.
I'd go Ekblad 3. I just don't know how much you need a right-handed defense. Like, I know people want an upgrade over Falk. I don't know if I'm going to give a guy who's 29 years old 8 years at $8 million.
I would probably go Ekblad 2 over Nelson because, like, I know he's older, but I think as we've seen, defensemen kind of age fairly well. Yep. So I'm not as worried about that, and he's a stud. He's a better all-around player than Nelson, in my opinion, so I would rather have Ekblad over Nelson, but I would go Tavares 1.
I want to say on the front end, I'd be super thrilled with any of these signings.
Oh, yeah, any of those three I think we're celebrating here on BK and Ferrario.
I would probably go Nelson 1, Tavares 2, Ekblad 3. That would probably be my ranking. And that's considering what the cost is likely to be for all three of them, how they fit all those different things. All right, from the 3-1-4, believe it or not, the Cardinals will make the playoffs.
I'm going to say not. No. I know I want to so bad. Dude, well, here's the thing. Like,
all day long, it is 1:27. Is this the 4-hour thing?
It might be.
Your Cardinals
I'm
fatigued?
exhausted.
You came into the show today saying they're a contender, and now they're not making the playoffs.
Sure, but so are like 6 other teams right now. Like the Braves are going to come back into this conversation. Really, the question you're asking is, are they better than the Cubs? I don't know. I think they are. I'll say believe it. I won't back out of it.
I'm believing it. I'm not even sure they have to be better than the Cubs. I think the NL is a little weaker than we're.
Who's falling out of it then?
Well, they're in it right now.
Well,
to be fair,
Mets, Padres, you think are playoff teams?
I think Mets, Padres are playoff teams.
You don't think the Braves are?
I don't think Giants are. I don't think the Braves are.
Oh, see, I think with Acuna back, they become a.
I know
dangerous.
they've got stars. They're not playing like that, even with them in the coming back. So. I don't think the Braves are, and they're like, we're acting like the Braves are like where the Giants are a game back. They're 5.5 games back right now. So I would say believe this.
It is funny, like Ozzie Albies has all the name recognition in the world, right?
It's been terrible.
Since the start of last season has an OPS below 700. If he was on the Cardinals, it would be like, that guy, there's something wrong. He's not the same player as he once was. Austin Riley. All the name recognition in the world, right? Have you guys seen what he's doing this year offensively?
He hasn't been as good. He's at league average, right?
Since the start of last season, he's basically like a slightly better Mason Winn offensively. So, like, the Braves are a very good baseball team, and they get exponentially better if Strider and Acuna come back, and they are the best versions of themselves. But, man, that lineup is not as deep as it used to be.
Michael Harris, who was a guy that came up, had a stud. He's been awful this year. There's talk about potentially sending him down. That's how bad he's been.
And that's something that dates back to, like, portions of last season as well. So it's just, I don't know what has happened there, but the lineup has gone stagnant. They are
Arizona to me, where I look at it and I go, this should be better, and yet I still don't know why it's not.
But within the offense versus with Arizona.
Arizona's it's the pitching. Woodland, it's the offense.
Do you guys think, I don't know the answer to this, and it's something that we'll probably eventually have to start thinking about with the Cardinals as well, given where they're at with their core. Can things just go stale? Like, their lineup has been the same for like 5 years now. More often than, like, they've had individual pieces that have been tweaked, but for the most part, that is the same core group of players that they've had really for about 5 years now. I wonder if things sometimes just go stale and it's the same coaching staff, the same players with the same messaging, and you just have to change things up. And I don't know that they've had enough roster churn there because they signed all of this core, and at the time they were celebrated for it, but they signed all of these core players to these long-term extensions. I wonder if that plays into this at all. I don't know.
It's a weird thing to happen, though, because, like, how does it get stale when you're just winning all the time with the same guys?
I mean, the offense has not been good for 2 years.
I think it can grow stale. And that's why, like, when we talk about these contract extensions, I'm like, I like what we're seeing from Nootbaar. And again, I wouldn't do Nootbaar yet. And I like what we're seeing from Donovan. I like what we're seeing from Mason Winn. I'm very hesitant to start handing out a bunch of contract extensions because the Braves, whether it's stale that's happened with the lineup or like Harris, for example, it just happens. Like, we see this in baseball all the time. I talk about this a lot with relievers. It happens in baseball with hitters as well, to where 1 year it just is gone and it never comes back. And they can't figure out why. Like, look at, he's older, but look at, like, Tim Anderson. Anderson was an all-star that hit 300. He just got DFA'd for the second time in, I think, 2 years because he just can't hit for power anymore. And when you get these guys into these long-term contracts, like the Braves, they probably look at their lineup and say, yeah, there probably is a piece that we should add. Like, maybe we need another center fielder. We're stuck in a bunch of these deals and we can't make any moves. We're kind of stuck, and they have a budget. They're basically at the budget because of these contract extensions. They're stuck.
The only team that didn't go stale that operated this way, because like the Cubs, text line brings this up as well from the 636 guys. Cubs went stale after 2018. It was a 3-year stretch basically where they were successful. It's true. The only team that has had sustained success that built this way, where they had the like young core, sign them all up mostly to long-term contracts, was Houston. Houston was able to build around those guys, signed a bunch of them to extensions.
They didn't do extensions all that much. Like Altuve's the one.
Jordan got an extension.
Jordan, that's it.
Altuve, I think originally Bregman got an extension, didn't he? I think he got to buy out the
ARB.
I think he bought out the ARB years. I'd have to look back on that. But they had like a 6-year stretch where all of those guys were under contract.
Ton of talented guys that they've let, like Correa gone, George Springer gone, Kyle Tucker traded.
Yep.
There was rumors they were going to trade Valdez in the offseason. They decided to hold on to him.
Fair point. Then if you discount them, I mean, Baltimore was supposed to be this team, and they've gone stale. Atlanta, by the way, over the last 3 postseasons, how many postseason games do you think they've won?
I think it's like 1 or 2. They haven't won much.
Lost in the NLDS 3-1, lost in the NLDS 3-1, lost in the Wild Card Series last year 2-0. So for all the talk about how great of a team this has been, and they have been really good, it really has not gone the way that any of us anticipated that it would. By the way, believe it, I do think the Cardinals will make it to the playoffs this year.
Hell yeah.
It's a long-winded way to get there. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll hit the rewind. But next, are the Cardinals mishandling the Michael McGreevy situation, or is the Michael McGreevy situation a reminder that the Cardinals are finally getting it right with their pitching development? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals are off today. They will be back in action tomorrow night as they start a 3-game set with the Texas Rangers. 7:05 will be first pitch tomorrow. Matthew Liberatore will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This text line, praise coming from all directions. Wait. All year, this show said the Cardinals just mishandled Walker, applied too much pressure, set the bar too high, and should have just let him do his thing. Now that they are taking their time with other prospects, it's also now mishandling. Can't have it both ways. Sir or madam, you anticipated what we were going to say coming up in this segment. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So I've seen some corners of the internet suggesting the Cardinals need to get Michael McGreevy up as quick as possible. He had another excellent start down in AAA last night. Alex, the swing and miss stuff is even starting to develop for Michael McGreevy at this point. Like, he's down there and he's working on his sweeper, the slider that he's been working on. And yesterday, he had 16 whiffs, 10 of which came via the sweeper, which had a 60% swing and miss rate. That's crazy for a guy that most of his career has been spent as like, he's going to be fine. He'll be a back into the rotation starter. Probably not a whole lot of swing and miss stuff, though. He's becoming a different version of Michael McGreevy, and it's a good one. It's exciting to see. So the classic reaction, understandably so, is, well, Andre Palante hasn't been great. Miles Michaelis, another underwhelming start for him last night. Time to get Michael McGreevy up. Go ahead and flip him with Andre Palante. To that texter's point, now that they're taking their time with prospects, it's mishandling? No, I would say the opposite. I would say this is a sign of them figuring it out on the pitching side of things. We talked to Eno Sarris earlier today, Alex, and he basically said, hey, listen, pitchers are kind of like defensemen in the NHL. It takes time. You have to let them marinate. You have to let them figure out who they are, what their identity is, and how they can go about getting hitters out at this level. And a lot of the time, that means developing the mental aspect as much as the physical aspect, either at the big league level, a lot of the time out of the bullpen, or at the minor league level of just by throwing, dude. Just go down there and pitch. And nobody has pitched more innings in minor league baseball since entering the minor leagues than Michael McGreevy. So I actually think the Cardinals have done a pretty damn good job of developing McGreevy. They have not tried to make him into something that he's not. They haven't slid him into the bullpen. They've just said, hey, go wait your turn. At some point this year, they're either going to go back to a 6-man rotation or somebody will be hurt, and he's going to get an opportunity at the big league level. And even if that never happens, by the grace of God, everybody stays healthy all season long, which is highly unlikely, he's going to be one of your 5 starters going into 2026, which sounds great. Like, I feel really good about that as well. So I think they're handling this in the exact right way, personally. How do you feel about it, Alex?
I think they are. Now, this doesn't mean this isn't meant to sound like a threat, but he better be in the rotation next year. Because, like, you are at the point now where, yes, you want him to marinate. You want him to get more innings and more work so that he knows what he is. But I've also seen this guy in multiple starts at the major league level, and he looks like he's ready for it. Now, there's nothing wrong with taking more time and developing and making sure that you're ready to go for the long haul, because when you're up here, the hope is you're here and you're not going back down. So I'm fine with that. And frankly, the guys that they've put in their rotation, there's nobody that I'm looking at saying, get him out of there. Even if you're not happy with Palante, he's still winning baseball games. The team is still winning with him on the mound. So it's not like you've got to get him out of there as soon as possible so that you can put McGreevy in there. I would like to see McGreevy get a little bit of a runway at some point because I think he's ready for the major leagues. But yeah, they are learning their lesson. This isn't a matter of, well, let's just get him up here right now and throw him in there and let him start throwing and he'll figure it out at the major league level. That was disastrous in the past. Give this guy as many opportunities as he needs to, but at some point you do need to say, he's ready, put him up here, let him go.
Agreed. I just don't think that is like right now. I think you're actually seeing a better version of McGreevy because of the taste that he got at the major league level last year and because he's been sent back down to AAA. I think he learned what he needed. He had a lot of success, honestly, in his brief opportunities up here, but he didn't have like a high strikeout rate or anything. It went significantly down from what it was down in the minor league level. And so he's gone down there this year. He's honed his craft a little bit. He's had an even higher strikeout rate, a lower walk rate. Nobody is hitting home runs against him. His ERA is down to 3.0 this season. Last year, it was a 4.0. The year before that, it was a 4.5. The year before that, it was a 3.9, depending on, and that was like split time between two different levels. He's getting better. He's developing. He's throwing. Last year was 175 innings. No minor league pitcher does that, dude. None of them. I mean, we talked about it with Jason La Canfora. He said, look at what Grayson Rodriguez was throwing. It was like 75. Look at the Cardinals' other minor league starters, many of whom we were excited about coming into the year. Tink can't stay healthy. Quinn Matthews is just coming back off of the IL. TK Roby has like a few months of health since being traded to the Cardinals like a year and a half ago. What's his face? Bedell's back on the IL. Earlier this year, Cooper Jerpy got Tommy John surgery. This is the one guy that's been the picture of health and has been the picture of consistency. Let him keep developing down there.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I like what they're doing and allowing him to kind of season down there. If you were to play devil's advocate, I guess if you were somebody to say, hey, why not use that at the big leagues? One, because he might be more effective than Andre Pallante. But two, like you mentioned, picture of health. He could be that guy like that ends up getting hurt. And then you end up really going, okay, now we don't have depth. And maybe we did just waste a good season from him by having it in AAA. But I don't think you're in a spot where you need that right now. I think it is smart to have a guy that is down in the minor leagues, serves as the sixth starter. And, like, I trust if they called him up. Like, let's say someone, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but let's say someone did get hurt and they called him up. I wouldn't look at it and going, boy, that game, whoa, we've got to be ready. Like the Dodgers, for example. They've been turning to, like, Bobby Miller. Man, Bobby Miller, we saw that stuff. It looked great. He was awful ever since the one outing he had against the Cardinals. And he's been bad even this year. So when the Dodgers go to Bobby Miller, their hope is, boy, I hope we get like 3 solid innings.
Yeah, we better score 10.
Yeah, and for the Cardinals, I would say, like, if you called up McGreevy, my response would be, hey, you're probably going to get 5 to 6 really good innings, and your offense just needs to do what it has been doing, score like 4 runs, and you've got yourself a chance to win that ball game.
And honestly, your rotation just hasn't been bad enough. Nobody has struggled enough to where I'm calling for him to be up. Andre Pallante is probably the guy that has had the most struggles so far this season. He has a 4.2 ERA. If that was a 6, I'd be singing a very different tune right now, because then it would be super easy. Pallante goes down, McGreevy comes up, you flip them, you hope that Pallante gets it figured out down at the AAA level, and you make it work that way. But that's just not necessary right now, because you don't have anybody that's struggling to the point where you have to make that decision. And I do think there's some of this that is about the mental side of things. Like, if you send Pallante down when he's been doing this, he's done what you've asked of him. Mm-hmm. He's a number 5 starter right now, and that's how he has performed. Honestly, he's performed better than most 5 starters in Major League Baseball. So I think that would be a little bit like saying one thing and doing another.
Well, you lose the player. It's the same reason I don't think sending Jordan Walker down when he goes through a rut does anything for you, because you lost the player then. Exactly. The player's like, cool, you're done with me, so I'm not going to be a part of this team's future, then move me.
And he's the only one that you can send up or down. You don't have flexibility with anybody else in your rotation right now. Fetty, Gray, Libertor's not going down. He'll either be in your rotation or your bullpen. And then Michaelis, you can't do anything with either unless you're just willing to completely cut bait with him. And there's no reason to do that right now. He's pitching well enough. He's got a sub-4 ERA. So Pallante's the one guy. And again, he just hasn't done anything to lose that opportunity.
You know what their record is, by the way? Because you said he gives them a chance to win. And I was like, okay, I feel that way too. But I'm curious, like, what's the record? His record's 4-3. They're 7-4 in games when he starts.
Totally keeps it close.
Yeah, that means he's doing his job. He's keeping you close in the ball games. Sure, there's times where BK comes into the office the next day and's like, "Boy, guys, that experience."
We have to talk him off ledge every 5th day.
But they won, you know. Like, long as he keeps you in the game.
Boy, I'm having deja vu of John Gant again. This actually was an argument that you and I got mad at each other
about. That's why I get nervous.
Yeah.
Like, the Pallante thing makes me nervous the same way that John Gant did. But right now, there's no reason to make that call until you need to. If you see more of the 4 to 5 walks, 4 to 5 innings, gives up a bunch of hits, wiggling through a bunch of jams. Like, if you see more of that and it's like the next 5 starts, now we can have that conversation. But right now, it's just not necessary. Coming up next, the Rewind here on PK and Ferrario. It's time to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. It's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health. They have a bunch of different options for you because different people need different things when it comes to unlock their inner champion. Weight loss goals, low testosterone, erectile dysfunction. They can help you out with each of those at Victory Men's Health. So check them out today. All that they have to offer, it's not just those three, it's so much more. VictoryMen'sHealth.com is the place where you can go and then book that first appointment. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and then tell them what it means for you to unlock your inner champion. I mentioned a few of the options: weight loss goals, low testosterone. They could check those levels for you over there, get you into the upper levels of that healthy range, or erectile dysfunction issues. They've got that. Also, they are doing something new recently. They're offering advanced food sensitivity tests. And when you do this over there, it looks at your response to 180 different foods and can help identify potential sources of inflammation or symptoms. So if you're interested in that, let them know that as well. It's all at Victory Men's Health and online at VictoryMen'sHealth.com. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, we had 4 hours today, so if you missed anything, you didn't know we were on at 10 o'clock, you can check out our full show on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, the free 101ESPN app, and on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. The 101ESPN app is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Alex, did you like the 4 hours? You want to switch and transition? Like maybe TMA goes 3, we go 4 moving forward?
You know what? Absolutely not. Thought this was fun, but let's stick with the good old 3.
Should we do 4 again tomorrow and then we transition back to 3
I think
on
we
Monday?
do 4, as many as the station needs us to do 4.
That's a really excellent answer, honestly.
I'm always happy to chip in.
All right, so the Cardinals last night, they win another series. They have won 8 of their last 10. One of those was a series tie, so they're 8-1-1 in their last 10 series now overall. We will be talking about this at length on the Redbird Report a little bit later on this afternoon, so you can check that out.
I'll tune
on
in.
YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL.
5 hours.
I will be, full disclosure, our video guy is under the weather. So we will be in the closet that Alex does his podcast from.
Sorry, your video guy's unavailable, and you guys have to go to the area that we're always in.
Yeah, so if you do watch it on YouTube, just be aware it's not going to quite look as pretty as it typically does. Alex, how do you feel about the Cardinals right now? Just big picture-wise, where are you at with this team?
I feel good about this Cardinals team. I know I hesitated earlier saying, are they a playoff team? And I think it's just because of the landscape of the National League. You guys don't believe in the Braves, and that's where we defer, because Ronald Acuna Jr. and Spencer Strider back makes me a little nervous. But I believe that this team can win in any game that they're in right now. And that's where I'm at with this team. I think they've got the clutch factor, which we talked about. Their pitching has held up for them. They've got incredible defense. It just seems every facet of what the Cardinals put out there on the field has a chance to win baseball games. And, like, they can't stop losing series. That's the craziest part about this right now.
Winning series. They don't do much of the losing.
That's what I meant. 4 hours. It gets you when you start putting your words over each other. They can't stop.
3 hours and 54 minutes, and Alex is done.
They can't stop winning series is what I meant. But that's just where I'm at with this team. I think they're a playoff team. Their offense absolutely is a playoff-esque offense. But right now, they're just never out of baseball games.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a playoff team, and I'm, like, convinced of that. Like, I will be shocked at this point if they don't end up making the playoffs. And the reason I say that is I think the NL is overrated as a whole. I don't think it's just, they're in a bad division, the NL Central. That's true. They're also – the National League, to me, is not that deep. I don't believe in the Giants. I think they're a paper tiger. I don't think the Braves are going to get themselves back in this to be much of a threat, and I really don't believe in the Brewers and Reds, and we'll see about the Diamondbacks. I think they are a playoff team. I think they are going to be buyers at the trade deadline. I don't think they're a World Series contender by any means. I don't think they're there, but I'm excited. I think they're going to be in October. I love October baseball. Let's ride.
They're just
Put the hat on.
The Cardinals are basically a top 10 team in every category.
Yeah.
You're a top 10 offense right now. You're second in batting average, 10th in slugging percentage, overall, like OPS plus, 10th. You're 10th in starting pitching ERA so far this year. You're 13th in bullpen ERA, but a lot of that is what happened at the beginning of the season when you had Fernandez and Roycroft throwing a gas canister all over themselves and then lighting themselves on fire repeatedly.
That's dark.
They're first in outs above average. If you look at a different defensive metric, they're 8th in defensive runs saved. So, like, again, top 10 in basically every category. This is just a very rare build in the modern era of baseball. Most of the time, unless you are the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, a team that can spend $200+ million on your payroll, as Alex yawns based on my take. It's very long-winded. I apologize.
It's just your numbers, man. Get to the point.
Unless you're one of those teams, you typically have an area that you're really light in. Great offense, terrible defensively. Great offense, man, look out for that bullpen. We're going to get to August, and that's going to be an issue. Those kinds of things. The Cardinals are just good in everything.
Yeah.
They're not great necessarily at any one thing other than defense, but they're really good everywhere. And so I agree with T-Bone. I can't be shocked if they miss the playoffs, because I do think that our disagreement is basically on the National League. I think the National League's pretty good. There's a lot of teams competing for that final spot in the playoffs. But, man, this team is really good.
My tune will change when they take the Cubs on in June. If you beat the Cubs and win that series, then I think you are a playoff team, because I think you'll be better than the Cubs. Because the Cubs are going to go through a tough schedule that the Cardinals just played themselves through. That's when my tune will change.
Cardinals have done this against good teams.
Yeah.
Like they went up against an Arizona team that thought maybe we're getting our mojo back, and then boom, swept them. They played basically 50-50 games the whole series with Detroit. They beat the Royals. They beat the Phillies. They beat the Mets in 2 out of 3
beat
in
the
that
Phillies
series.
twice.
I think the Mets are awesome. I think the Phillies are a World Series contender potentially. Like, it's just...
Yeah, and they've got what the Cubs' schedule was early on in the season is what the Cardinals are going to play in June, with the exception of the Dodgers and the Cubs, and that's why that Cubs series could change my tune significantly.
Basically, starting June 9th, they open things up with their schedule.
My only, I don't even know if I'd call it hold up. My only worry isn't even like what they're doing on the field. Is the front office going to give them reinforcements? Are reinforcements going to be coming at the deadline? And if so, to like what extent? Like if you're going to be a marginal buyer and they had like that right-hander that we saw Baltimore throw out that has like 3 strikeouts per 9, looks like Michaelis 2.0.
That's a Cardinals type of pitcher.
They had him. That's not good enough in my opinion. And that's where, and I'm not saying they got to go out and acquire an ace. They need a guy with a little more swing and miss.
Had a great conversation today with Eno Sarris on the Cardinals pitching side of things. He also talked a little bit about the hitters and who's going to work out well. Jason Canfora lost his ever-loving mind earlier today with us as well. If you guys missed any of it, check it out on the podcast page. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. Don't forget the Redbird Report later on this afternoon. The Fast Lane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.